Welcome back to the channel. This is 20 Storm and you are watching What If Naruto Was Sent to Another Dimension by Kushina after defeating Kaguya. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no time, let's start the story.
The air tasted of dust, the ground was shaking, and the dust and debris had blotted out the sky. As 16-year-old Sasuke Uchiha lay on the ground, dazed and bruised, a warm feeling spread through his body, but it didn't make the pain any less intense. His body was being battered by pain and exhaustion. His dirty, matted black hair covered his face, concealing his bruised cheek and left eye. There was a tiny hole in his chest, no larger than a coin. His short, sleeved, gray, high-collared shirt was ripped in multiple places, and blood was dripping from the cuts. The only person he could call his best friend was Naruto Uzumaki, his blue-eyed and blonde teammate, who stood above him. Sasuke was physically stronger than Naruto. His signature orange tracksuit, which included the Leaf's typical blue forehead protector and matching high-top sandals, was ripped from the fight and covered in blood. Sasuke said, "Naruto," his onyx-colored eye visible as he watched his blonde teammate attempt to heal him, a bright green glow encircling the blonde's right hand. When he tried to sit up, a sharp pain shot through his chest, causing him to wince and moan. "Don't move, Sasuke. Just save your strength," Naruto asserted as he gently pushed his friend. The green glow intensified and changed into a dark green glow as he sent more chakra in his right palm. He gritted his teeth and watched helplessly as his friend's body slowly broke down in front of him. "Why isn't this working?" he asked himself. "Naruto, please, hurry up." Sweat trickled from Naruto's forehead, but he did not stop or turn to face his teacher, Kakashi Hatake. "I am trying my best, Kakashi. Sensei," he exclaimed. Kakashi was a tall, fit shinobi with silver hair that seemed to defy gravity, framing his face. Being a Leaf.nin, he wore a flak jacket and gloves as part of the uniform of the Leaf Village. A huge, transparent humanoid creature in full samurai-style armor surrounded him. The being acted as a shield between Kakashi's students and their adversary, with its wings spread wide to cover as much ground as possible, its feet spread wide to act, and its hands on the swords, ready to draw from the scabbard. "Obito, I hope your parting gift, Susanoo, will be able to handle Kaguya's attacks," Kakashi thought as his blood-red eyes, which had black pinwheel patterns around the central pupil, focused on the women floating in midair. Kaguya Otsutsuki's piercing white eyes were fixed on Naruto and Sasuke, and her face was expressionless and cold. She was surrounded by her incredibly long white hair, which took up far more room than her body. She had two horn-like protrusions that protruded from her head, and a third eye with vertically parted eyelids in the middle of her forehead, but no one knew her origins or whether she was human in the first place. The irises and sclera of the eye were red, and the eyeball had a ripple-like pattern with 9 coma-shaped tomos. Kaguya pointed her long fingernails, which were painted a dark shade of nail polish, at Kakashi's Susanoo while pursuing her dark lips. With amazing speed, a large ball of compressed wind blasted out of her finger. The Susanoo swiftly raised his swords and used a crisscross motion to stop the ball, but the force of the attack caused him to stagger back a few feet before he was able to regain his balance. Twisting his blades, he shifted his weight to his left foot and aimed the ball in that direction. As he collapsed to his knees, Kakashi thought, panting, "I doubt the Susanoo will hold another one like it." Although his Susanoo slightly distorted, he was able to stabilize the chakra flow once more. Violent rushing wind was sent everywhere as the compressed wind ball struck the ground and created a blast that was equal to the detonation of multiple explosives. Even though Kaguya's transitional high-collared kimono, which was embellished with tomo and elaborate lines, fluttered in the wind, her unwavering eyes remained fixed on Naruto and Sasuke. When Black Zetsu, with its pliable black body concealed in Kaguya's left arm sleeve, said, "Mom, this time add more chakra into your attack. Kaguya's will flash all of its razor-sharp teeth in a malevolent smile. His defense won't stand against your another powerful attack." Kaguya looked down at Sasuke and remarked, "There's no need to waste my chakra on it. Once one half falls, they all will fall. Why should we take that risk? That blonde brat with young half is still alive." Keeping her Byakugan focus on Naruto, Kaguya said, "Yes," shifting her eyes from Sasuke to Naruto, "but without help from yin half, he cannot start the sealing ritual." She was unable to identify the issue, but it was obvious that something was amiss. Akunoichi with bright pink hair said, "Sasuke-kun." Tears sparkled in her lovely green eyes. She brought her glowing green hand down to check his health, bending slowly with trembling hands. The girl with the pink hair stuck her free hand into the side of her pink skirt and apron. Sasuke was in poor health and his condition was only getting worse. She covered his heart with her hand. As the gentle green glow transformed into a deep, almost black shade of green, her entire healing chakra focused on her developing hand. Her red top was splashed with a few tears that trickled down her cheeks. He was not being treated with any of the healing methods she had studied under her master, Tsunade Senju, who was among the greatest healers in the elemental nations. Sakura-chan. Naruto gave his teammate Sakura Haruno a dejected expression because he understood her feelings. It was Sasuke who said, "I finally acknowledged you, Naruto." Naruto said, "Huh, Sasuke?" He cast a downward glance at his friend and rival. "If I die now, the destiny that according to the sage has bound us so far will end too," Sasuke said. "However, we can. No, you can still win after I die by taking my eyes and yin sage chakra. I won't let you die, Sasuke. Naruto. You and I, we both know. Even with your yang sage power, it is impossible to save me now." "Sasuke is right, Naruto." Naruto looked up to see an elderly man sitting on some kind of elevated invisible ground, tall and pale. Skinned, floating in midair. He wore a full-length white kimono with a high collar adorned with a pattern of 6 red magatama. A necklace composed of the same 6 magatama was worn underneath the kimono. "Old man?" Naruto became aware that he and Sasuke were no longer in the Kaguya's dimension at that point. With a quick glance, he took in his surroundings. The new location was literally deserted and nothing like the mountainous area of Kaguya. All that existed was a pure white field devoid of any sky or ground. "Old man, can't you help Sasuke?" Naruto asked, turning back to face the individual. This elderly man was the Sage of 6 Paths, also known as Hagoromo Otsutsuki. He was the first to be born with the same potent chakra that their mother had given them, along with his fraternal twin brother Hamura. He was the son of Kaguya. The ninja world was created as a result of the legendary godlike figure who founded Ninshu. His hair was pale red, spiky, and shoulder length. A chin-length braid hung in front of his left ear, and he had a long beard that matched the color of his hair all the way down to his waist. Additionally, he inherited his mother's horn-like protuberances on his forehead. The sage went down to the level of Sasuke and Naruto. 9 black balls the size of fists floated behind him. They were called truth-seeking balls. His renowned Rinnegan eyes met the faces of the 2 boys. His Dujutsu, which was purple in color and devoid of tomo, actually resembled Kaguya's third eye. "I'm sorry, Naruto. I'm afraid I can't do that." The sage looked at Sasuke sadly. Seeing his descendants die young was something he always detested. He had witnessed numerous deaths over the ages, and now he had to repeat the experience. "My mother is the progenitor of chakra. Her chakra is far stronger than mine," he said. "The attack she used on Sasuke is one of her strongest attack. It disintegrates whatever it touches instantly. It's only Sasuke's sheer willpower is slowing down its effects and keeping him alive." He sighed. "There is nothing else we can do to save him." Sasuke was aware of that beforehand. "Naruto, take my eyes and yin sage chakra. This is the only way." Naruto desired to object. "But, Naruto, I'll support whatever you decide, but keep in this mind, only your and Sasuke's combined powers can defeat my mother and release the infinite Tsukuyomi," said Hagoromo. The right side of Sasuke began to crumble into dust as he said, "You have to make a decision, fast. Very fast, Naruto. I can't keep holding this for much longer." Naruto's eyes were closed. As a weapon to bring her ideal peace to the world, Kaguya's most powerful technique was the infinite Tsukuyomi. The victims would experience a dream world according to their personal desires in this never-ending illusion. The blonde thought that peace was a lie. Team 7 had escaped this illusion because of Sasuke's enchanted Susanoo. He was unable to say the same about the inhabitants of the elemental nations. In order to avoid becoming white Zetsus, the demon goddess ideal soldiers, they had to vanquish her and rescue every victim of the lethal illusion. As he remembered the series of events that resulted in the current state of affairs, Orochimaru's attack, Sasuke's deflection, Pain's attack, and the Fourth Shinobi War, he inhaled deeply and fell silent for a minute. He made up his mind. He looked at the god of Shinobi after opening his eyes. "Let's do this." "Good. Combine your Yang Sage Chakra with Sasuke's Yin Sage Chakra," said Hagoromo. "I'll do the rest." Sasuke raised his left hand, palm facing Naruto, and displayed a dark crescent moon, symbolizing the yin chakra. "Are you ready, Dobi?" he asked. "Teme, I was born ready," Naruto said, grinning weakly at his brother who was all but blood. He stooped a little and opened his right hand, revealing a pale circle in the middle that symbolized yang chakra. "Yeah, right," Sasuke uttered, at last displaying his signature grin. Yin and yang were combined as they clapped their hands together. The sage lifted his dual-headed shakuho, which was black in color. The sun and moon were symbolized by the ringed hoop on one end and the crescent-shaped curve on the other. Bringing the shakuho over their hands, he declared, "I'm leaving everything up to your hands, Naruto. I'm watching you, Dobi. Don't do anything stupid." A bright flash blinded Naruto after he felt a tingling sensation throughout his body. He was back in the Kaguya's dimension when his vision finally cleared. Naruto. Sakura's tears were streaming down her gentle cheeks like warm rain, and she was unable to contain them any longer. Sasuke-kun, he is. The only thing left of his brother in all but blood was a heap of ash, and Naruto gazed down at it. From his left eye, a single tear trickled down his whiskered cheek and landed on his chin. He spun around, staring at Kaguya with a resolute, intense stare that never wavered or changed. "Hee, Mom, we won," exultantly cheered Black Zetsu. Kaguya thought, something's wrong here. Traces of a well-known chakra were detected by her Byakugan inside Naruto's body. Hagoromo. Naruto appeared in front of Kaguya in the blink of an eye. She widened her white eyes. He punched her in the face, sending her flying through the air before she could react because it happened so quickly. He vanished once more, resurfaced above her, and kicked her in the direction of the ground. She was covered in a thick cloud of dust and dirt after she struck the ground. Hovering in midair, Naruto looked down for the dust to subside. He knew she would never be harmed by such a simple attack. Sakura. Kakashi approached and stood beside his lone female pupil. Sakura sniffed, tears streaming down her cheeks. Kakashi. Sensei. I couldn't do anything to save Sasuke-kun. Kakashi put his hand on her shoulder and said, "Sakura." He was aware of her intense love for Sasuke and how deeply his passing affected her. "Don't blame yourself. It's not your fault. I know you tried your best." But Kakashi. Sensei, he lived a warrior and died a hero, Kakashi said. He turned his head in the direction of another hero who was up against the strongest creature in shinobi history. Kaguya was hovering in mid-air after emerging from a crack in space. "Time." She looked at Naruto and said, "I should have listened to you, Black Zetsu," as a bone blade emerged from her palm. "But it's not too late to make it right. All chakra belongs to me. Once again, all chakra shall become one." Kaguya transported herself behind Naruto and entered another dimensional void. She killed him with a swing of her bone blade. Naruto was instantly reduced to a wooden log and swiftly reduced to ash when her blade struck him. This didn't really surprise her, so she turned and launched the same bone projectile that killed Sasuke toward her left. "I barely avoided that bone bullet," Naruto thought, because her Byakugan can see farther than Hinata's and Neji's. With a mocking tone, Black Zetsu remarked, "Such a childish trick won't work on Mom, brat." Naruto closed his eyes, inhaled deeply, and then opened them again, saying, "Then maybe this will." Kaguya stopped dead in her tracks, her eyes wide with anger and surprise. "How?" With 3 black tomo arranged in a triangle around the pupil, Sharingan, Naruto's right eye had a deep crimson iris. But it was his other eye that really stoked the rabbit goddess's wrath. The same dujutsu that she had in the middle of her forehead was in his left eye. "What the heck?" exclaimed Black Zetsu. "How does he have the eye like you, Mom?" The tomo in Naruto's eyes started to spin hypnotically as his eyes narrowed. A halo of 9 truth-seeking balls materialized behind him. One of them he shaped into a blade. With an incredible surge of speed, he swung the blade across the vast distance and chopped off the demon goddess' head. He missed. In order to save her head, she sacrificed the left limb she was using to carry Black Zetsu. Her arm was ripped from her body and thrown to the floor. Naruto raised the blade and brought it whistling down once more. Kaguya was prepared this time and deflected his blade, retaliating by conjuring a bone blade in her right hand. The blade was pushed away by her. Taking hold of the blade, Naruto sprang at Kaguya. She blocked once more as he swung the blade. He struck repeatedly, using all of his strength. As each attack came, she thwarted it. He was doing well with a blade, even though he had not received the same official training as Sasuke. Kaguya gave Naruto an angry glare and locked his blade with her own. How did you get that eye? How did you get Rinne? Sharingan? She inquired. The power of that eye belongs to me and only me. Naruto didn't understand a word she said. Is this Rinne? Sharingan for real? A Sharingan of some sort? He used his blade to push Kaguya's away. Alright. Make a mental note to learn how to use a sword. The blade nearly struck his head, but he just managed to block it. Only if I make it through this. Hee, this is my chance. Black Zetsu laughed when it realized it had a fantastic opportunity to break through the barrier of its mother's peace. It used its creator's severed arm to launch a bone projectile through a small dimensional rift in Naruto's direction. Get moving. Naruto heard a female voice yell in his head. Naruto wasted no time in solving any problems. He shifted, and the bone projectile came within centimeters of his head. The words, Black Zetsu, he growled. Damn! Exclaimed Black Zetsu. I almost had him. Abruptly, Naruto's clone materialized above Black Zetsu. To ensure that it wouldn't interface again, he pinned it down with two of the truth seeking balls acting as rods. He said, You, stay out of my way, and then vanished in a cloud of smoke. Kaguya was looking at Naruto with a frozen, expressionless face after successfully growing back her severed arm. Blunt pieces of earth rose into the air around Naruto as she glared at him and slowly raised both arms in front of her, palms facing up. Shit! Naruto muttered as he observed the jagged pieces of earth start to circle him. The pieces of earth followed Kaguya as she clapped her hands, crushing Naruto between them. She wasn't finished with her technique. Everything was drawn in, and it grew until it was a huge earth sphere floating several meters above the ground. Naruto told himself, Old man, your mom is super strong. He had just managed to keep himself from being crushed inside Kaguya's miniature moon by encircling himself with a defensive shield of truth, seeking balls. Indeed. A wise voice said, After all, she's my mother in everything, Naruto. The voice was one Naruto recognized. He said, Hey, old man, is it you? Indeed, Naruto. It's me. Good, you're here. Well, could you please tell me what I should do to get out of this? You wouldn't be experiencing this issue right now if you had some control over your new eyes. Naruto replied, I don't get it, while rubbing the back of his head. But speaking about my new eyes, what the heck is this Rinne? Sharingan. My mother has a third eye on her forehead, have you noticed it? Yeah. You have the same eye in your left eye socket, and that is the Rinne, Sharingan. What? Asked Naruto, his eyes wide open in disbelief. How'd I have that eye? Sasuke didn't have it. I hope you won't end up like my mother because neither Sasuke nor I have considered even a small portion of the tailed beast's chakra within you. What was in the last? It's not that significant. Hey, you haven't answered my question yet. Rinne, Sharingan, use it. But I don't know how. I'm here for that reason. It was oddly quiet outside the sphere, but not in the sacred silence sense. Rather, it resembled the adage, calm before the storm. Almighty push. Large cracks appeared across the surface of the entire planetary mass as it shook, but it stopped quickly. It then burst into a huge eruption that sent molten rock and debris miles from the epicenter. In order to protect himself and Sakura from the impending shockwave and pyroclastic flow of the falling miniature moon, Kaguya flared her godly chakra, and Kakashi covered himself and Sakura under Susanoo's wings. One individual, though, lacked their resources. Black Zetsu yelled, Hey! Watch where you're throwing those things. It had nearly been struck by two big rocks. Abruptly, a large shadow covered it. Mommy, help me. Hovering in midair, Naruto held the sage's shakuho in his hand and looked at Kaguya. With his free hand, palm facing Kaguya, he pointed and hurled several golden chakra chains with sharp talons at the tips. Kaguya flew up to get away from them. The chakra chains followed her up there, making a sharp turn. They followed her even though she moved. She was growing impatient with these games of cat and mouse. She came to a halt, cut all the chains that attempted to hold her back, and conjured up a number of white arms made of her pure chakra. She was surprised to find that even after being cut off from the source, the chains continued to follow her. She attempted a last-ditch teleportation through a dimensional void. That didn't work either, because the chains followed her through the partially sealed rift. As the talons sank deep into her flesh, Kaguya hissed in pain. Then she was pulled from the portal by the chains. Without hesitation, Naruto approached her, prepared to seal her. Sealing the progenitor of chakra wasn't so simple, though. The goddess triggered her chakra before he could touch her. she escaped all constraints and stepped into a different dimension. Right behind you, Naruto. He was cautioned once more by the same female voice from before. When Kaguya attempted to pull Naruto into a different dimension, her hands encountered nothing. Just in time, the blonde had switched places with a little rock. He sealed his hands in a T-shape in a hurry. Multiple shadow clone jutsu. With a puff, 50 clones appeared. They all shot upward, crashing straight into their shared foe. Kaguya threw out her fists and started hurling chakra arms at random. The clones they came into contact with were immediately vaporized. There were only 10 Naruto left when she was done. Each of them had a huge black orb of chakra in their hand, encircled by blades that resembled shurikens. They all threw their Rasen Shuriken simultaneously, 9 of them. Multiple-tailed beast ball Rasen Shuriken. "This is for you, Sasuke," said the real Naruto, who was the last one. He was holding a slightly different Rasen Shuriken than others. With the exception of having shuriken, like blades that cracked with red electricity, giving off a sound reminiscent of birds flapping their wings, it was black like tailed. Beast ball Rasen Shuriken. His words were, "Red lightning release." Rasen Shuriken. As they sped toward Kaguya, his Rasen Shuriken soon found himself in the other's line. They expanded and engulfed her in a brilliant white light that stretched for several kilometers after they struck the target. Naruto looked up at the thinning dust cloud and saw that the blast was much larger than he had anticipated. When he saw Kaguya slowly getting to her feet and appearing as though nothing had happened, he almost yelled, "What the?" Kaguya gave a startling scream all of a sudden. White chakra started to emerge from her body. Everyone was rendered blind when her body exploded as a raw chakra. Kaguya was gone when Naruto's vision cleared, and a monster had replaced her. It looked like a giant rabbit crossed with all-tailed beasts, but Naruto had no idea what kind of beast it was. He had not anticipated this sort of outcome. All he could say about the creature was that it was a collection of all-tailed beasts. The enormous rabbit-like creature, which had Kaguya's signature Rinne Sharingan on its forehead and had a human-like upper body with sharp teeth, was a perfect fit for Kaguya's reputation as the rabbit goddess. The heads of the 9-tailed beasts and multiple chakra arms protruded from a large, spherical mass of chakra in its lower portion. Naruto, mother's chakra, is no longer under her control. Hagoromo informed Naruto, "We can weaken her, but we can't seal her in this form." "You got it, old man." The beast is pinned to the ground by 3 golden chakra chains that emerge from Naruto's body. Naruto tightened his hold on the rabbit creature as it started to struggle to break free. Then, through the chains, the beast's chakra gradually started to leak out of the body and envelop Naruto like a cozy blanket, enveloping them both in a dazzling white glow. Naruto thought, "This chakra is so strong and powerful, almost collapsing under the weight of the demon goddess chakra. I'm not sure how much chakra I can take in before losing self-control." A significant amount of chakra was lost, and the beast shrank to over half its former size, allowing the chains to loosen their hold on its body. It allowed time for the beast to launch a counterattack. The chakra's unbalanced progenitor roared, raised the hand, and brought it down. Its massive hand was ready to crush Naruto, but Kakashi's flawless Susanoo quickly stepped between them and snatched Blonde. The warrior in armor then spread his wide wings and shot skyward at a great speed. As he and Sakura hovered inside the armored warrior, Kakashi raised Susanoo's arm and asked, "Are you alright, Naruto?" Naruto said, "Yeah, I am fine, Kakashi. Sensei," climbing onto the Susanoo's shoulder. Kakashi turned his head and fixed the creature nearby with his Sharingan eyes. He inquired, "What's happened to her?" Naruto turned and gazed directly at Kaguya's changed form. "Her power has gone out of her control, Sensei," he replied accordingly. He tightened his hold on the chakra chains and made the ram seal, mimicking the beast's movements once more. The chains suddenly became dark, began to shrink, and lost their golden glow. They disappeared as they gradually assimilated into the beast's body. The beast had regained its freedom. With a roar, it transformed into a chakra mass. The mass began to shrink to human proportions after twisting and turning, indicating that Kaguya had regained control over her power. She quickly returned to the game. With a murderous expression in her icy white eyes, she spun in Naruto's direction. Hagoromo advised against taking her chakra. His voice was nervous, and he hoped Naruto wouldn't hear it. Naruto shouted in his head, "That was your idea, old man, not mine." Indeed, but Mother is unaware of that. The tailed beast mass that had caused Kaguya to lose control of her power was transformed into a gigantic black ball by raising her arms. Naruto swallowed. He recognized the enormous truth. Seeking ball she was holding instantly. Kakashi. Sensei. We're doomed if that ball hit us, said the man. Kakashi became aware of the gravity of the situation. He said, Naruto, get ready to catch us, and then he looked at Sakura. I need your chakra for this, Sakura. Sakura gave a nod. She touched Kakashi's back with her glowing hand. After inhaling deeply, Kakashi closed his eyes and opened them again. He focused all of his chakra on his eyes and directed it toward the Sharingan. His stance faltered slightly as the eyes fed on his chakra, distorting his vision. Susanoo's feet began to slowly fall apart, but he continued. Behind his mask, he gritted his teeth. He closed his eyes for a moment, and when he opened them again, everything made sense to him. He stared at the enormous truth. Seeking ball. Kamui. The enormous truth. Seeking ball started to be consumed by a massive vortex that had formed. The entire ball was devoured by it before it vanished into thin air. Susanoo vanished because she was lacking chakra. Two Naruto clones moved swiftly, catching Sakura and Kakashi before they could fall. Slowly, the clones drifted downward until their feet made contact with the earth. Heavy on the ground, Kakashi sat. He rubbed his eyes as a wave of exhaustion passed over his face. Sakura gasped in surprise as he looked up. Kakashi. Sensei, your eyes. Kakashi gazed downward. His Sharingan eyes had been permanently replaced by his natural dark eyes. Yeah, guess Kakashi of the Sharingan ends today. In the meantime, Kaguya and the real Naruto were engaged in combat. Kaguya shot bones at Naruto, who encircled himself with a sphere made of truth, seeking balls. When she realized her attack had failed, she raised her palm, which had chakra gathered in the middle. Before launching out at tremendous speed and forming into a spear, the collected chakra formed into a white sphere the size of a basketball. At the same moment, the staff that Naruto had dropped earlier flew back into his hand as he held it out. Then he tossed it toward Kaguya. A cloud of smoke engulfed the area as the two attacks collided in midair, causing an explosion akin to a massive volcanic eruption. It created such a powerful shockwave that Kaguya and Naruto were blasted in opposite directions. Naruto had stumbled to his feet after the attack, his head still ringing. His clothing was filthy, ripped, and still smoldering in many places. Opening his senses, he found Kaguya. Where are you? Slowly, a gap appeared behind Naruto. Kaguya stabbed him in the back, right through the heart, without even considering mercy. A tiny bit of blood came out of Naruto's cough. Hee, just like Neji. Kaguya's expression changed to one of perplexity. With a sly smile, Naruto vanished into a cloud of smoke. The real one exploded out of the ground, slamming into Kaguya's chin with a smoke-encased fist. He didn't waste any more time. He encircled the demon goddess with a chain of chakras that he whipped. He firmly pulled her in his direction and placed both of his palms on her shoulders. 6 paths. Chibaku Tensai. When Naruto used one of the strongest sealing techniques, the moon and sun gradually came together like pieces of a puzzle. Kaguya's third eye and her chakra were gradually sealed off as a lunar eclipse started to form on it. Kaguya, feeling the last of her strength leave her, said feebly, again, I, the ancestor of all chakra, am defeated by these scattered chakras. Why? Instead of Naruto, she saw her son, Hagoromo. When she looked up, she said, Hagoromo, I hate you. Before her chakra and cherished Dujutsu totally sealed off. Slowly, her body rose into the air. Hagoromo said, get ready, Naruto. We have to retrieve the all-tailed beast. Through their mental connection, he gave instructions. As instructed by Sage, Naruto clapped his hands together. With each tail ending with the head of a tailed beast and the 10th ending with the rabbit head, minus the rinne. Sharingan, Kaguya's body transformed back into the 10 tails. With perspiration streaming down his brow, he sharpened his focus and divided the 10 tails chakra into the 9 tailed beasts. 10th tail was also separated from Madara Uchiha, whose body Black Zetsu used to bring its mother back to life. An earthen, colored humanoid creature with a rotted appearance and several spike-like protuberances on its back was left behind when he crashed to the ground. It was the depowered form of Kaguya. Finally out, Kurama. Your Jinchuriki is nice, shouted the red-tailed, 4-tailed monkey Son Goku. He received a smirk in return from the 9-tailed fox. Hagoromo declared, it's time to keep my mother out of everyone's reach forever. Everything was in disarray. Massive masses of earth were drawn up toward the husk's body, tearing open the earth itself. It crushed everything ruthlessly against it, forming a huge earth sphere that grew larger and larger every second. The Kaguya will resemble the shadow. It was very difficult to kill because, like a shadow, it could bend and twist because its body lacked a true form. Its adaptable physiology had enabled it to endure in combat. Watching the blonde brat seal its creator's body inside a giant earth sphere, Black Zetsu thought, I have no choice. I will have to wait until my mother is revived again. It looked up as a long shadow passed over it. Why, you? What do you want now? Haven't you done enough damage? Black Zetsu, said the Naruto clone slowly, his words dripping with venom. The thing in front of him was an exception to his rule that he rarely disliked people. He looked down at the Kaguyas with icy eyes and said, You are the culprit behind all this. You tempted the sage's eldest son Indra to go war with his younger brother Asura. You didn't stop there. Over centuries, you manipulated both brothers' reincarnation and their descendants for your own gain. So, what? Naruto's head was lowered, facing the ground, and a thick shadow cast over his head completely obscured his face as he said, You used Obito. You used Madara. You used everyone as a tool of reviving Kaguya. Because of your action, many ninja died, my friends died in my arms. Zetsu Black sneered. I don't care how many human dies. I won't stop until I revive my mother once again. After asking, you didn't want to leave your mom, right? Naruto moved forward and bent to seize Kaguya's severed arm sleeve. You're just a part of the shinobi history I've created so far. You're just a brat, you can't. Naruto threw Kaguya's and Black Zetsu's severed bodies in the direction of the enormous earth sphere, saying, The history of the shinobi was made by the lives of many ninja and their deaths. He yelled, A brat who can't even leave his mother's side won't understand a thing about it, and eliminated the final barrier to global peace, ensuring that Kaguya would never again rise from the dead. Naruto fell heavily to the ground, where he lay with his eyes closed and panting on the dirt. He opened his eyes and saw the second stone prison of Kaguya, which he had constructed inside her own dimension by tearing off a sizable chunk of the planet, when he had finally managed to control his breathing. Now the prison was a satellite orbiting the Earth. He said to himself, panting, that was quite tiresome, and he sat up. Because, Hagoromo said, you have no control over your power. Anyway, Naruto said. He saw the dark crescent moon mark on his left palm and the bright sun mark on his right. Hello, elderly gentleman. I assumed that once the sealing was done, those marks would vanish. The famine voice that had forewarned Naruto about Kaguya's attacks said, You've brought peace to the elemental nations, but your destiny isn't over yet. What? Naruto and his surroundings were engulfed in a white light. It was so bright that it momentarily blinded him. The infinite Tsukuyomi, who was cast by Madara and later kept alive by Kaguya's power, vanished from the elemental nations as soon as the sealing was completed. All of the surviving white Zetsu, who were also victims of the technique, withered along with the roots of the divine tree that was used to bind the victims. Tobirama remarked, so it's finally over, as he gazed up at the dazzling full moon. The Hidden Leaf's second Hokage was Tobirama, who was also known as Tobirama Senju. He had dark eyes, white shaggy hair, 3 red markings on his face, and a tall, fair-skinned build. Instead of the more conventional forehead protector, he wore a hapuri engraved with the leaf emblem and blue war armor emblazoned with the Senju symbol. The first Hokage of the Leaf Village, his brother Hashirama Senju, was the target of the second Hokage's cocked head to his right. Hashirama had dark eyes, tanned skin, and waist-length black hair that was usually styled in a center parted fringe that framed his face. He was also a little taller than he was. In addition to a leaf forehead protector, he was dressed in traditional samurai red armor. In addition to having gray sclera instead of white like his brother, he was reincarnated by Edo Tensai. Grandfather, granduncle. When they turned around, they saw Tsunade Senju, the 5th Hokage, with a sizable allied forces army behind her. Tsunade was an average height, fair-skinned woman with straight, blonde hair and brown eyes. She wore a wide, dark bluish gray obi that matched her pants and a gray kimono style blouse without sleeves that was held closed. Hashirama raised his arms in the air and smiled upon seeing his granddaughter. Hey, Tsunade. We won! He exclaimed with some joy. Every shinobi, including his own brother and granddaughter, perspired at the legendary shinobi's relaxed and carefree demeanor. What will I do with you, brother? Tobirama gave a headshake. Orochimaru, Sarutobi. Sensei, Hiruzen Sarutobi, the 3rd Hokage, was a dark-skinned, undersized man with gray hair that was spiked in a small beard. Sanin Orochimaru, the snake, was a tall shinobi. He had a long face with prominent cheekbones, golden, slitted eyes, waist, length black hair, and very pale skin. They were standing close to the former Hokage. Hiruzen broke the silence after they had been staring at each other for a few minutes. Orochimaru, he replied, why didn't reincarnate Minato? If he had been here, a lot of things would have gone much easier. Sensei, it's not like I haven't tried that, because I have. It's just that Minato's soul wasn't in Shinigami's stomach. What's that meant? I don't know. I tried to summon Minato multiple times before but failed every time. First I thought it was due to his soul being inside Shinigami's stomach, but now. Orochimaru nodded. Why he was unable to call forth the fourth Hokage was beyond him. When One Leaf Junin exclaimed, Tsunade Sama, we've found them, everyone turned to face him. Oh, my head, said Kakashi. With one hand massaging the aching spot on his head, he sat up. When he looked up, he saw that everyone was a Hokage except for his sensei, the fourth Hokage. Tsunade Sama. Tsunade said authoritatively, Kakashi, where are your students? They must be here. Somewhere. Kakashi, declared the third Hokage. We found Sakura. Unconscious, pretty badly injured, but alive. Hashirama remarked, and tailed beasts, gesturing behind Kakashi. Kakashi noticed the tailed beasts when he turned around. They all seemed to be unconscious. Where are your remaining students, Kakashi? Tsunade repeated. Kakashi cast a downward glance. His words, Sasuke died as a hero. Tsunade feared the worst and asked, and Naruto? The last time I checked he was perfectly fine. Kurama remarked, I can't sense his chakra. He stood up and closed his eye to feel the chakra in his container. He opened his eyes in shock. I can't find Naruto. A tiny green toad with white hair suddenly emerged, along with a puff of smoke. The toad had a tiny goatee and extremely thick eyebrows. In his hand was a sage staff. Fukasaku. Sama, Hiruzen said, recognizing one of Mount Myoboku's great sages. Fukasaku looked in Tsunade's direction. His words, Tsunade-chan, Naruto's name has vanished from our contract. When Tsunade realized what he was implying, her eyes widened in surprise. The body of our hero was gliding through a pitch black void. He had no scratches or bruises, but his clothes were ripped and filthy, his hair was matted and dirty, and he was barefoot. Naruto, said a gentle female voice. She gave him a hard slap across the face when he didn't respond. Naruto, wake up. With a start, Naruto sat up and rubbed his cheek. He got to his feet and gave the slapper a fierce look. What the Mom? He was motionless and his eyes were bugged out. In front of him was his mother, Kushina Uzumaki, who had passed away not long after he was born. Kushina was stunning, and it seemed as though she had not aged in 17 years. She actually appeared much fitter and younger. Her fair skin, fiery red hair that framed both sides of her face, and a black clip that parted her hair to the left, out of her eyes, gave her a feminine yet slender figure. She wore the ensemble, which included a long, baggy dress underneath a sleeveless, high-collared blouse. In addition to her typical violet eyes, Naruto saw that she had white sclera, indicating that she was not an Edo Tensei. Mom. Naruto repeated. She happily returned his bone, crushing embrace as he encircled her in his arms. Mom, you're alive? He said, breaking off the embrace. Naruto, do you realize where we are? Inquired Kushina. Naruto looked around him and said, Huh? He was shocked and startled to discover that he was in a pitch black, seemingly empty space. Then he looked back at his mother's face. Am I dead? No, you are not. Naruto exhaled a sigh of calm. Then where are we and what is this place? This place is nowhere. It is in between the ninja world and Earth. You can call it the dimensional gap. The dimensional gap? How did I get here? Kushina touched his cheek and grinned, saying, Naruto, I called you here to take you to your rightful place where you belong. I've waited so long for this day to come. You see, you do not belong to the ninja world, neither do your father and me. That place isn't your home, the Earth is. We wanted to take you with us after your birth, but you being the child of prophecy prevented us from doing that. She continued to smile. She went ahead and gave him a gentle forehead kiss, saying, Now that the prophecy is over, I can finally take you to your actual home and give your rightful place where you should have been. A dazzling white glow surrounded him. It's not goodbye, but see you soon. And one final word of advice, though, my son. Get a book on Greek god and goddess. Trust me, you will need that information. A moment later, Naruto was standing in front of his mother, and then he was falling and hurtling toward the ground at a breakneck speed in an endless sky of blinding blue. A burnt orange. Black. White jacket, a black t-shirt, fingerless gloves with metal plates on the backhand, black leather pants, a black ninja pouch on the left thigh, and black shoes were all he was wearing instead of his filthy, ragged old clothes, which would have been a perfect fit for Earth's modern fashion. He yelled, "Mom! Are you trying to kill me?" All of a sudden, it seemed to freeze. Time pause. Naruto found himself in front of the sage once more in the white world. "Old man, you are still inside my mind. I have decided to stay and help you with your powers until you know how to use them properly." Hagoromo closely examined the boy with the blonde hair, noting his new golden blonde hair and the slight fading of his signature whisker mark. He could observe the most obvious change in Naruto's physical appearance when he was not using his dual dojutsu. Now the blonde's eyes were two different colors. His left eye had turned blood red, while his right eye had remained the same sky blue color. "I don't know what changed my mother so much that she was called a demon, but she was once a fairly popular goddess." He reasoned that she must have experienced something after eating the chakra fruit. "You might be just as powerful as my mother, Naruto. I will stop at nothing to prevent you from becoming like her." Naruto waved a hand across Sage's face and exclaimed, "Hey, old man? Are you here?" "I was thinking about something," Hagoromo said. "Sorry, Naruto. Anyway, why were you screaming earlier?" As though he had seen a ghost, Naruto's face went white. "Old man, you have to help me. I'm falling from the sky," he yelled. "Naruto, calm down. You can fly, remember?" "Huh?" A sudden insight dawned on him. "Oh, yeah." Naruto grinned and struck a friendly pose with the elderly sage. "Thanks, old man. You are the best." Naruto was once more in midair, plummeting back toward the earth, but he had control over everything this time. A human. Animal hybrid laughed and said, "Now do you see how hopeless it is? Yield, little heroes." He had a scorpion's tail, a lion's body, and a man's face. A monster from Greek mythology called a manticore. Trapped between the fully armed helicopter and the monster, 5 demigods, 3 girls and 2 boys, as well as 1 satyr felt powerless. The majority of them were aware that their chances of escaping this predicament alive were slim. But miracles occur all over the world on a daily basis. The monster was frozen in his tracks by the sharp, unmistakable sound of a hunting horn being blown. Nobody moved for a second. The only sounds were the chopping of the helicopter blades and the swirl of snow and wind. "No," said the monster. "It cannot be." A glowing silver arrow pierced his shoulder, interrupting his sentence. He stumbled back, screaming in pain. The monster yelled, "Curse you!" and hurled his spikes, dozens of them at once, into the woods where the arrow had originated. In response, silvery arrows flew back just as quickly. The thorns had been cut in two by the arrows, which had caught them in midair. With a howl of agony, the monster withdrew the arrow from his shoulder. He was having trouble breathing. A 14-year-old boy with black hair and green eyes rushed forward, taking advantage of his distraction. He was a demigod son of Poseidon named Percy Jackson. He attempted to use his sword to slash at the creature, but it wasn't as hurt as he appeared. He sidestepped the blow and knocked Percy off balance by slamming his tail into the shield he was holding. The archers then emerged from the forest. There were a dozen of the girls. Nearly 10 years old was the youngest. Around 14 years old, the oldest. They all had bows and were dressed in jeans and silvery ski parkas. Their faces were resolute as they moved toward the monster. "The hunters!" exclaimed Athena's demigod daughter. Annabeth Chase was her name. Like the majority of Athena's children, she had stormy gray eyes and curly blonde hair. "Oh, wonderful," mumbled the girl beside Percy. She was Zeus's demigod daughter, Talia. Her eyes were electric blue, her hair was spiky black, and her nose was freckled. Unaware of what was going on around him, the son of Poseidon was perplexed. One of the older archers even stepped forward with her bow drawn before he could question his companions about it. She had coppery skin and was tall and elegant. Her long dark hair was braided with a silver circlet, which set her apart from the other girls. She did not remove her from the monster before asking, "Permission to kill, my lady?" The beast let out a cry. "This is not fair, direct interference. It is against the ancient laws." Another girl stepped forward and said, "Not so." In addition, she appeared to be around 12 or 13. Her eyes were odd, silvery yellow like the moon, and her auburn hair was pulled back in a ponytail. Her expression was dangerous. "The hunting of all wild beasts is within my sphere. And you, Foul creature, or a wild beast, she said. She glanced at the circlet. Wielding older girl. Zoe, permission granted. Manticore snarled. If I cannot have these alive, I shall have them dead. A loud voice brought everyone's attention before the monster could take any action. Hey, watch out! Everyone looked up and paused what they were doing. A black object shot down toward them, and they saw it. All but the manticore instinctively retreated a few paces from the peril. It was too late for the monster to stop it by the time it realized what was happening. Next to him, the object fell. The monster was sent skidding across the ground by the tiny shockwave it produced. It was none other than our hero Naruto that had crashed to the ground. He got out of the small crater he had left and brushed the loose dirt from his jacket before standing up. He surveyed his surroundings and paid attention to them. He was on a cliff, but he thought he was close to the sea because he could smell the cold, salty froth and hear the waves churning. When he saw a group of young girls pointing their arrows at him, he started to perspire. They were disgusted, furious, and their faces were filled with curiosity. To see what else he had done, he glanced over his shoulder. With his eyes on the manticore, Naruto asked, mainly to himself, okay, what's a failed experiment of snake freak doing here? The monster glared at Naruto as it rose to his feet. You? He exclaimed. He shot half a dozen spikes at Naruto at once, saying, I am going to kill you. However, they only struck the ground where their target was just a moment before. He was hurt. Naruto had punched him in the stomach when he looked down. Man, you are too slow, Naruto grinned. Then he vanished once more and reappeared on the back of the monster. The monster stumbled forward due to his excess weight and then fell face first to the ground. While watching the fight, Bianca and Nico D'Angela, two demigod siblings, had quite different facial expressions despite having similar physical traits, such as dark, silky hair and olive skin. Nico, who was 10 years old, exclaimed, "That was so cool," with a big smile. He glanced at his 12-year-old sister, who was wearing a rather shocked expression. He pointed to the locations and made the gesture with his hand. "Did you see that 1 second he was there? And next, he was there?" he asked. Bianca reprimanded him, "Shut up, Nico," before addressing the other demigods. She gestured to Naruto with her finger. "Do you know him?" "Well, no," said Grover Underwood, the satyr. He had white pimply skin, brown eyes, and curly brown hair. He wore a cap and fake human feet to conceal his extra non-human features. "My lady?" Zoe said, keeping her gaze fixed on the battle. The girl with auburn hair narrowed her silvery yellow eyes at the blonde boy and said, "Wait, Zoe. I want to see what he can do." Surprisingly, the half-beaten monster was still upright as Naruto gazed at him. He heard the snap. Snap. Snap with his enhanced hearing. To put distance between himself and the monster, he backflipped. The snow where he had been a second earlier had tiny holes in it. Naruto raised his head. "What is it?" he pondered. "The elemental nations lack the technological sophistication of Earth, Naruto. Helicopter is the name of that object you were viewing." Hagoromo clarified that it is a machine. "How did you find out?" "I traveled to many places during my lifetime and even after I passed away. One of the locations in them is Earth." Naruto's senses wandered. He sensed a lot of negative emotions from inside the helicopter, screaming, "We are the bad guys here. Any recommendations?" Telepathically, he asked. He continued to dodge the bullets as he advanced, eventually approaching the helicopter. "Indeed. Disentangle its tail from its body, I understand." From Naruto's palm, multiple chakra chains sprang out and encircled the helicopter's tail rotor. He pulled the chains and detached the tail rotor from the main body of the helicopter, saying, "Goodbye." The impact was immediate. The helicopter started spinning violently down toward the ocean with its left hand. Then, without a trace, it plunged into the ocean. Naruto remarked, "That was excellent advice, old man." When he turned around, he saw the Orochimaru's failed experiment fall from the cliff while carrying a blonde girl on his back. The monster had yelled, "This is not the end, Huntress. You shall pay." "Hello, elderly gentleman. How did I interpret the results of Snake Freak's botched experiment?" Naruto inquired. The sage said, "I believe your mother has taken action." "Do you think?" "Indeed. My mom is amazing, man." "Pay attention to your front, Naruto. That girl with the auburn hair is expressing something. Additionally, show respect." Naruto glanced down at two young women. Even though the auburn-haired girl appeared completely composed, he could tell she was irritated. It was a different story for the person next to her. He could sense her emotion without anything. He could tell everything from the death glare she was giving him. He cocked his head to the side and said, Did you say something?" "Yes," the auburn-haired girl replied, her previously concealed annoyance now evident on her face. "I asked your name." "Oh, sorry about that. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. I am Artemis, the Greek goddess of the hunt." "Really?" At last, Zoe had enough. "Show some respect toward Lady Artemis," she instructed, her scowl intensified tenfold. Artemis held up her right hand to prevent Zoe from acting recklessly and said, "Zoe, stand down. I sense no disrespect. Yes, I am real Artemis." Naruto rubbed the back of his head and said, "Well, then I suppose you can tell me what this Greek is." "Huh?" Artemis was genuinely stunned for the first time. "What?" inquired Artemis. "Could you repeat that again?" Naruto asked. "What is this Greek?" He didn't know her true identity. For a moment, Artemis gazed at the boy. She could tell by the look on his face that the boy had no real knowledge of Greek history or Greek gods. "Where are you from again?" "I'm from the elemental nations." Artemis had a startled expression on her face, but it vanished as fast as it had come. She thought that explained it. Zoe didn't know where it was, so she asked, "Where is that place?" Artemis said, "I will tell you about it later, Zoe," before turning to face Naruto. Her voice became harsher. "Now tell me, how did you get here and what is your purpose in coming here?" If Naruto was taken aback by her inquiry, it was not evident from his expression. "Truthfully, I don't know what I am doing here," he replied. "My mother, who I thought was dead, told me, you do not belong to the ninja world, and then sent me here." "Did she tell you anything else?" "Yeah, she gave me the advice to read books on Greek god and goddess." Through their mental connection, Hagoromo added, "Your father is also from this world." "Shall I tell her that?" Naruto inquired. "You'll be better off keeping some personal information private." "Why should I do that?" "You don't need to tell her about your father anymore. You've already told her too much about yourself. We are unsure of her response to this." So his mother is a Greek goddess, Artemis thought, closely examining the blonde for any hint as to who his mother might be. A blonde with hair. Athena? No, she is not his mother, in my opinion. She doesn't seem to enjoy that place very much, as far as I know. Aphrodite? His aura is too powerful for her or any child of a lesser goddess. Hera and Hestia have nowhere to go. When Naruto saw Artemis staring at him oddly, he exclaimed, "There is something on my face." Artemis turned around and started to walk after saying, "Nothing, come with me. I will tell someone to explain everything to you." Before following her goddess, Zoe gave the blonde boy a fierce look. "It's strange," Naruto thought as he pursued the goddess. Hagoromo remarked, "But at least she didn't try to kill you like a certain goddess I know." Naruto shuddered when he considered Kaguya. As he watched Zoe and another girl named Talia exchange death glares, Naruto began to perspire. "They don't seem to like each other very much," he stated. Artemis signed and said, "Zoe, that's enough. We will rest here for a few hours. Raise the tents. Treat the wounded. Retrieve our guests' belongings from the school." The answer was, "Yes, my lady, and, Bianca, come with me. I would like to speak with you." "What about me?" inquired Nico. Naruto grinned and said, "Don't worry, I'll keep you occupied until your sister returns." Nico raised his gaze to Naruto. "Really?" he inquired. The boy's dark hair was ruffled by Naruto. "Yes." Nico's smile widened and brightened. "Cool, maybe you can show me your super cool moves," he replied. Artemis nodded to Naruto appreciatively. She looked over at Grover. "As a favor to me, could you respond to some of his questions?" she said, pointing to Naruto. Grover was on the verge of falling. "Why? Yes, sure, Lady Artemis." Naruto said, "Fan of yours?" in a low voice that only Artemis could hear. The statement, "he is a satyr. They are often drawn toward nature," was made by Artemis. Naruto gazed at Grover and said, "That's interesting." When he entered the sage mode, a sage marking appeared on his face, a tiny red rhombus mark on his forehead and red pigmentations from his eyes to his ears. He said to Grover, "The natural energy around you is so pure." However, as Hagoromo noted, the natural energy of this world is so weak and populated with foul energy in comparison to the elemental nations. Grover's mouth moved back and forth several times. "How?" he inquired at last. Like Lady Artemis, he sensed the blonde was full of nature. "I am a sage," declared Naruto. The sage markings vanished as he expelled all the natural energy he had previously gathered. Artemis was wearing a look of surprise. The faces of the other kids, with the exception of Zoe, were bewildered. Grover asked, "A real sage, really?" Talia questioned, "Aren't you too young to be a sage?" With his arms folded across his chest, Naruto remarked, "I don't know what you think about being a sage, but it has nothing to do with age. A true sage means being one with nature." Grover exclaimed, "Come on," to Naruto, his voice growing animated. Grover, Naruto, and Nico strolled off into the woods, discussing a variety of unrelated subjects. The majority of the subjects dealt with nature, which Nico's child's brain was unable to comprehend. Bianca looked perplexed as Artemis led her along the cliff and signed. Zoe followed Artemis, giving Talia another death glare. Talia stamped her foot in exasperation as soon as Zoe left. The nerve of those hunters. They think they're so, arg. "I'm with you," said Percy. "I don't trust." As she turned on him angrily, Talia interrupted, "Oh, you're with me? What were you thinking back there in the gym, Percy? You'd take on Dr. Thorne all by yourself? You knew he was a monster. If we'd stuck together, we could have taken him without the hunters getting involved. Annabeth might still be here. Did you think of that?" Percy's mouth tightened. He was shocked that Annabeth was no longer there. Though he was upset with Talia for suggesting that he was to blame, he secretly knew she was correct. He was to blame. Something navy blue was lying in the snow at his feet when he looked down. York Yankees baseball cap. He took it up. "Annie's cap," asserted Talia. Grover's voice echoed through the forest. "What?" Thinking that another monster might attack, Percy and Talia quickly snatched up their weapons and fled into the woods. When he arrived, Percy said, "Grover, are you okay?" He quickly scanned the area in search of the monster, but he couldn't find it. "Grover, where is it?" Grover questioned, "What? Monster?" Grover gave him an incomprehensive look. "What are you talking about? There is no monster here." Talia, irritated that she had run for nothing, asked, "Then why did you scream?" Naruto remarked, "Well, I just asked him a simple question." Talia turned to face him. "What did you ask? What is this Greek?" Together, Talia and Percy yelled, "What?" which made Naruto once more shield his delicate ears. Grover remarked, "Percy, he is more clueless than you are." Before understanding what he had said, Percy gave a stupid nod. "Hey." Naruto rubbed his ears and said, "Why don't you just tell me everything about this Greek instead of screaming?" Due to his heightened senses as a former Jinchuriki and ninja, his hearing was far more sensitive than that of the average person. "My lady," said Zoe. "Where is this elemental nation's place? I've never heard about it before." Artemis observed her hunters setting up camp and unpacking their knapsacks. Her gaze shifted to her second order. She said, "I am not surprised, Zoe. The elemental nations is not on Earth. It is name of one of the closest dimensions Earth has." "Are those real?" inquired Bianca. Most likely, she was experiencing one of the most peculiar days of her life. First of all, she had discovered in front of the group of children that Greek mythology was not truly a myth. Rather, the Greek gods were very real. This was evident from the fact that Artemis, the goddess of the moon and the hunt, was standing next to her, and that she and Nico's father might have been one of them. The moon goddess was now claiming that there was a different dimension, which had been mentioned numerous times in the various comics, as if that weren't enough. What now? She believed that gods suffer from multiple personality disorder. "Yes," replied Artemis. "Huh?" said Bianca. "Multiple dimensions do exist. The elemental nations is one of them. That place is most beautiful place I've ever seen." "Really?" inquired Zoe. "That location must be very lovely if it could win over her mistress." "Yes, it is filled with large untouched forest and various wildlives, and has almost no pollution." But Artemis' face became serious. Despite being technologically backward than Earth, the mortal in the elemental nations have something that makes them very dangerous. They have mythical energy named chakra. Using it, they can execute feats that regular beings, even most of the demigods, are unable to do. They can increase their strength, speed, durability, they can control the elements, they can cast illusions, and many more. Zoe said right away, "Then that boy is dangerous. Not only is he from that world, but he is also a demigod." Which is quite surprising. Why? The elemental nations doesn't come under Olympians' rule. It has separate deities and they have set some rules for us. "Rules?" inquired Bianca. "According to Artemis, yes, rules. We, Greek gods, can enter their dimension, but can't interact with any mortals of that dimension. The mortals can't hear us, they can't see us, they can't touch us. To them, we gods are like a ghost." "Then how did that born?" Zoe inquired. Only one way it's possible to interact with mortals. It is in our mortal form with having all our powers sealed. Why did deities of that place make such rule, my lady? For that, we have to thank Ares and trouble he caused 2,000 years ago. After Grover finished explaining Greek gods and the number of demigod children they had in each century, Naruto questioned, do they even know what a condom is? His question caused everyone to perspire, with Nico being the exception. The young boy's face was filled with confusion as he asked, condom? What is it? Naruto tilted his head in the boy's direction and said, well, does anyone explain you about birds and the bees stuff? The birds and the bees? Nico's naive expression told him everything. Okay. He looked over at Percy. Give Nico the talk, Percy. Percy found this surprising. Why me? Naruto folded his arm and remarked, you are the leader of your group, so it is your job. You are the leader, Percy, Talia remarked with an internal smirk. He is right. It was going to be fun for her. Grover agreed with her and nodded his head in agreement, as he didn't want to do that himself. Percy thought, traitor. He glanced down at Nico. The boy felt uncomfortable because of the curious look on his face. Well, he was at a loss for words because he was unsure of where to begin, but Zoe Nightshade unexpectedly saved the day. She said, come with me, Percy Jackson. Lady Artemis wishes to speak with thee. Percy exhaled a sigh of comfort. He had the opportunity to leave this embracing circumstance. He nodded right away. Nico said, hey, what's about me? Percy said, ask Grover, he'll explain you everything, which made Grover's face go white. Nico gave Grover a look. Goat seemed uneasy with his unwavering gaze. Ask Ch. Iron, suggested the satyr. His face's color returned to its natural state. Yes, Chiron. He will tell you. Chiron? The horse. Man? Yes, he is the activities director at Camp Half-Blood. But, Nico opened his mouth to complain, but a loud rumbling sound interrupted him. Huh? Naruto rubbed the back of his head and apologized for not eating anything for the past 2 days. Do you know where I can find a good ramen stand? Grover said, ramen? What is it? Food of the gods. But ambrosia is the food of gods. For the next hour, Naruto spent time with 2 demigods and 1 satyr, listening to him discuss his favorite food, ramen. I don't know what Ambro. Arranged by, whatever it is, but ramen. Ramen is a gift that God has given to all humankind. Is he crazy? Talia pondered. Grover questioned, is ramen really that delicious? The mere thought of it made his mouth water. In response, Naruto said, yeah, will it make me strong like you? Nico inquired. Naruto gave a head nod. Cool, I'm in. This was enough for Talia. It is only a noodle soup, she yelled. Yes, ramen is a noodle soup, told Naruto, but it tastes so heavenly. Huh? What's going on here? Percy asked, looking very perplexed. Talia looked in the direction of her cousin. Just trust me on this, she said, you don't want to know. Percy, what did Lady Artemis talk to you? Grover inquired. After taking a deep breath, Percy looked at Nico and said, Bianca has joined in them. Talia yelled, what? Her face changed from one of shocked surprise to one of outraged anger. It's all Zoe's fault. That stuck up, no good. Grover asked, who can blame her? He let out a deep breath and asked, eternity with Artemis? Talia gave an eye roll. You satyrs. You're all in love with Artemis. Don't you get that she'll never love you back? The words, but she's so into nature, made Grover salivate. You're nuts, added Talia. Grover said, nuts and berries, with a dreamy tone. Yeah. In reference to himself and Nico, who was wearing a perplexed expression, Naruto said, could any of you please explain this in detail to us? Both of us? I'm sorry, Nico, but, Percy said, opening his mouth. Bianca said, Nico, as she and Zoe arrived, I want to talk with you alone. After giving a nod, Nico and his sister departed. Naruto Uzumaki, asserted Zoe. Lady Artemis wishes to speak with thee. Okay, said Naruto. He approached her and took hold of her shoulders. Without giving her an opportunity to object, he took her and vanished into thin air. That was so cool, Grover exclaimed. Percy gave a nod of agreement. I wish I had that ability. Naruto and Zoe emerged from a sizable tent that had the same appearance as the others. All of them were made of silver silk that was curved in a crescent around one side of a bonfire. Zoe experienced mild vertigo, but it seemed to pass. Her eyes were blazing with rage as she turned to face Naruto. How dare thou touch me? Zoe, Artemis exclaimed as she emerged from her tent holding a white rabbit. Zoe said, "My lady," and dropped to her knees. After saying, "Stand up, Zoe," Artemis turned to face Naruto. "Naruto Uzumaki, follow me." Naruto went into the tent after her. The tent's interior was cozy and warm. The floor was covered with silk pillows and rugs. A golden brazier of fire appeared to burn in the middle, devoid of smoke or fuel. The display stand was made of polished oak. A massive silver bow that resembled gazelle horns was carved on it. Animal pelts from tigers, black bears, and other creatures were displayed on the walls. He remarked, nice," as he examined unfamiliar animal pelts. "The goddess, thank you for the compliment," she said. Placing the rabbit in her lap, she took a seat on the tent floor. "Join me, Naruto Uzumaki." On the floor of the tent, Naruto was seated opposite her. "What do you want to talk about?" To Artemis's right, Zoe took a seat. As though he had done something wrong, she gave him a fierce look. Naruto said to Zoe, "Okay, seriously, what have I ever done to you?" Artemis uttered the words, "You must forgive her, it is very rare that we would have boys in this camp. Boys are usually forbidden to have any contact with the hunters." "Really?" asked Naruto. "Yes." Naruto looked over at Zoe. When he said, "Then I forgive you." Angrily, Zoe gritted her teeth. "I didn't ask for thy forgiveness, Uzumaki." "Whatever." Artemis quickly shifted the topic because she didn't want to hear any disagreement, saying, "Naruto Uzumaki, did Grover explain everything to you?" "Yes. He is a great guy, so I can assume that he has told you about Camp Half-Blood." Naruto nodded. "Good, my twin brother will soon be here to take demigods and my hunters to the camp. Go with him." "You've a brother?" "Yes, my irresponsible and annoying twin, Apollo." Once more, Naruto nodded his head. He stood up and expressed his gratitude to her. He had wanted to ask Artemis, "What is so special being one of your hunters?" before he left. "Immortality," declared Artemis. "My hunters are immortal, well, unless they fall in battle, which is unlikely." "What's the catch?" "What do you mean? Something like immortality cannot come without any price, so what is it?" "They can't fall in love. To forswear romantic love forever. To never grow up, never get married. To be a maiden eternally. They have to take this oath to join my hunt." And Bianca agreed on this. Yes, she wanted to free of all her responsibility. "What about her brother?" Zoe asked. "What about him?" "He will go to camp. Unfortunately, that's the best he can do." Artemis went on, "She can see him from time to time, and when Nico will reach the camp, he will have the camp counselors to take care of him. It'll benefit to both of them." Naruto gave a headshake. It's not easy to break the bond between the people important to you ever since birth. Nico and Bianca, they are siblings. The string that binds them is thick and strong, he said, pointing to the moon goddess. Bianca hasn't realized that yet. But you'll never realize the importance of something until it's gone from you. He pivoted and started to move. "I just hope you have made the right decision because your wrong decision will not only affect Bianca, but Nico as well." Artemis was at a loss for words. She observed Naruto go. "My lady," said Zoe. "Dawn is approaching. Zoe, break camp." "Yes, my lady." "Cold," said Grover, standing in the snow and trembling. Naruto inquired, "Are you okay?" He seemed unconcerned by the cold. "Why?" "Yes." Artemis gazed eastward as if anticipating something. Slowly, the sky grew lighter. "About time. He's so... oh lazy during the winter," she muttered. "So, Grover, who is this Apollo?" inquired Naruto. "Lord Apollo. He is the god of light and the sun," said Grover. Shaking like a person suffering from typhoid fever, he encircled himself with his arms. He is also the god of tea, truth and prophecy, healing, plague, music, and poetry. "Don't look," Artemis cautioned, "not until he parks." "Parks?" Naruto pondered. He turned away and noticed that everyone was doing the same, with the exception of Artemis. The warmth and light grew stronger, then abruptly vanished. Naruto pivoted. "What's that?" "Naruto," Hagoromo said, "it's a car." "A vehicle?" With his gaze fixed on the car, Naruto asked. He had no idea that it was a red Maserati Spider convertible. It was glowing because its metal was so hot. "No, those things cannot glow, but humans use them to travel." Before the blonde had a chance to ask him another question, Hagoromo clarified that it is a godly thing. Grinning, the driver got out. He appeared to be 17 or 18 years old. The man was attractive and had sandy hair. He was tall and dressed in a sleeveless t-shirt, jeans, and loafers. Apollo called out to her, "Little sister." He flashed his dazzling white teeth in a bright smile. "What's up? You never call. You never write. I was getting worried." Artemis let out a sigh. "I'm fine, Apollo, and I am not your little sister." "Hey, I was born first. We're twins. How many millennia do we have to argue?" Apollo interrupted, asking, "So what's up? Got the girls with you, I see. You all need some tips on archery." Artemis tightened her jaw. "I need a favor. I have some hunting to do, alone. I need you to take my companions to Camp Half-Blood." "Sure, sis," the sun god said, raising his hands in a gesture that represented stopping everything. "I feel a haiku coming on." Every hunter let out a moan. He held up one hand theatrically and cleared his throat. Green grass breaks through snow. Artemis was not particularly interested in hearing any more poetry. "I am so cool," he smiled, anticipating a round of applause. "That last line was only 4 syllables, Artemis remarked. Apollo scowled. "Was it? Yes. What about I am so big-headed?" No, that's 6 syllables. He began to murmur out loud. Naruto didn't pay much attention to Zoe Nightshade's atonement, thinking, "Man, the sun god is weird, but at least he is not as weird as Bushi, Brow and his sensei." Zoe had turned to demigods and was expressing, "Lord Apollo has been going through this haiku phase ever since he visited Japan. 'Tis not as bad as the time he visited Limerick. If I'd had to hear one more poem that started with, 'There once was a goddess from Sparta.'" "I've got it," declared Apollo. He looked really proud of himself as he bowed, saying, "I am so awesome. That's 5 syllables. And now, sis. Transportation for the hunters, you say? Good timing. I was just about ready to roll." "These demigods will also need a ride," says Artemis, "some of Chiron's campers." "No problem," Apollo said after examining them. He looked at Naruto. Who are you?" Naruto said, "Naruto Uzumaki," grinning. "Brother," said Artemis. "He is from the elemental nations." Apollo remarked, "Whoa. The elemental nations." He jerked his head in Naruto's direction. "You are a ninja?" The answer was, "Yeah. Cool, ninja?" asked Percy. Apollo clarified, "Yeah, that place is full of super powerful ninjas." Talia remarked, "Never heard about it." Apollo remarked, "Because it is in another dimension." Talia looked at him like, "Are you serious?" "Finally, brother," Artemis said, "you should get going." "Oh, right," said Apollo. He turned to his Maserati, which could accommodate a maximum of 2 people, and said, "We'd better load up." "Huh? Ride only goes one way, west. And if you miss it, you miss it." About 20 of them were present. "Cool car," said Nico. "Thanks, kid," said Apollo. "But how will we all fit?" Apollo appeared to realize the issue for the first time, saying, "Oh. Well, yeah. I hate to change out of sports.car mode, but I suppose." He retrieved the keys to his car and pressed the security alarm button. Chirp, chirp. The car glowed brightly again for a moment. One of those turtle-top shuttle buses, which were used for school basketball games, had taken the place of the Maserati when the glare subsided. "Right," he replied. "Everybody in." The hunters were told to begin loading by Zoe. Apollo took her camping pack and said, "Here, sweetheart. Let me get that." Zoe flinched. Her eyes glowed homicidally. "Brother," reprimanded Artemis. "You do not help my hunters. You do not look at, talk to, or flirt with my hunters. And you do not call them sweetheart." Apollo opened his hands. "Sorry. I forgot. Hey, sis, where are you off to, anyway?" "Hunting," said Artemis. "It's none of your business." "I'll find out. I see all. Know all." Artemis gave a snort. "Just drop them off, Apollo. And no messing around." No, I never mess around." After rolling her eyes, Artemis turned to face her hunters. "I will see you by winter solstice. Zoe, you are in charge of the hunters. Do well. Do as I would do." Zoe stood up. "Yes, my lady." As though searching for footprints, Artemis knelt and touched the ground. She looked troubled when she got up. So much danger. The beast must be found. She ran into the woods and vanished into the darkness and snow. With the car keys jangling on his finger, Apollo turned and smiled. "So," he said, "who wants to drive?" Naruto exclaimed, "That was one hell of a ride," as he got off the sun bus. Apollo said, "Yeah," concurring with the other blonde. Apollo made a grave error by allowing Talia to operate his sun bus. Most of the passengers were scared when the daughter of Zeus drove the bus at 1,000 miles per hour. She set the lawns, roofs, and trees on fire after melting the snow off them on the way to the camp. Finally, with a loud FLOSH, Talia crashed the bus into the camp Blood Canoe Lake, ending the ride, and sending a number of terrified naiads scurrying out of the water carrying baskets made of woven wicker. Apollo yelled, "Take care, sweethearts," back to the hunters as they left for the cabins. He gave Percy a wink. "Watch out for those prophecies, Percy. I'll see you soon." As always perplexed, Percy asked, "What do you mean?" Apollo chose to get back into the bus rather than respond. When he called, later, "Talia, and you too, Ninja Man." He revved the engine and shut the doors. In a burst of heat, the bus changed back into the red Maserati and took off. Rising higher and brighter, it soared over the woods until it vanished in a ray of sunlight. "Naruto," called Talia. "Come on, I'll introduce you to Chiron." Naruto started to go after her. He passed numerous opulent cabins adorned with tiny flickering lights en route. He also observed how deserted the camp appeared. According to Talia, this is the big house. She had shown him a big house with strings of yellow and red fireballs decorating the porch, warming it but not seeming to set anything on fire. It serves as the main administrative building at Camp Blood. Flames crackled in the hearth inside. In the parlor, two men, one of them in a wheelchair, were quietly playing cards. When he saw the demigods, the man in the wheelchair grinned. He had a scruffy beard, brown hair, bushy eyebrows, and intense brown eyes. He had a blanket on his lap that nearly concealed his wheelchair, and he was wearing a fuzzy sweater with a hoofprint design on it. He replied, "Percy, Talia, and they are Nico D'Angelo, according to Percy. He and his sister are half-bloods." Talia said, "And Chiron," gesturing to Naruto. "This is Naruto Uzumaki." Chiron exhaled a sigh of comfort. He turned to Naruto and said, "You succeeded, then. And you even got another one." According to Naruto, "Technically, I got them." "How?" "Well," said Naruto. He started with a brief account of his story. The first thing that the man beside Chiron said after he finished was, "So you are from the elemental nations." Naruto turned to face the man, who was dressed in purple running shoes and a neon orange leopard skin warm up suit. You are." According to Chiron, Mr. D, the camp director. Mr. D, also known as Dionysus, was the Greek deity of theater, parties, ecstasy, wine, madness, and grape harvest. His face was plump, his nose was red, his curly hair was so black it looked purple, and his eyes were watery, blue, and bloodshot. Naruto remarked, "Nice to meet you, and by the way, nice suit. Orange is my favorite color." Mr. D gave Percy a look. "You should learn something from him, Peter Johnson," he stated. "It is Percy Jackson, sir," Percy said, detesting this man. He consistently referred to him by incorrect names. Naruto inquired, "Where can I get more information on the Greek gods?" Grover entered the room at that moment, beaming broadly. He had red lines on his face that resembled slap marks and a black eye. "The hunters are all moved in." Chiron scowled. After giving it some thought, he turned back to Grover and said, "The hunters, I see we have much to talk about. Grover, please show Mr. Uzumaki the way of our library," he asked Nico. "And take our young friend, Nico, to the den and show him our orientation film." "But, oh, right. Yes, sir," Nico said. "Orientation film? Is it G or PG? 'Cause Bianca is kinda strict." "It's PG.13, noted Grover. "Cool," Nico exclaimed as he joyfully left the room. The child reminded Naruto of Konohamaru, and Naruto grinned. He pursued them. Chiron saw something was amiss, and his smile melted. "What's wrong? Where is Annabeth?" With a bored tone, Mr. D uttered, "Oh, dear, not another one lost." Talia put it this way. "What do you mean? Who else is lost?" "This is our library, Naruto," Grover remarked. "You can find all information about Greek gods here." Naruto said, "Thank, Grover," as he entered the library. The library was enormous, with wood, marble, and shelves brimming with books. He wasn't looking at the tables, though there were a few. He inhaled deeply. He could smell the library's collection of both new and old books. The library was so stuffy and hot that wearing a jacket made you feel as though you had to take it off or you would suffocate. He was not bothered by this, though. "I hate reading," he said to himself. "Yes, but according to Hagoromo, this is the only thing that can teach you more about this world." "Yeah," Naruto answered. He smiled as a sudden thought occurred to him. He made a recognizable T-shaped seal with his hands. No, you cannot do this with your clones. Why? After a lengthy silence, Hagoromo telepathically said, Naruto, sometimes the simplest approach isn't the best one. But I'll save time that way. It will, of course, but I'd like to see how patient you are. Why? I'll teach you how to wield a sword if you finish this task. Old man, you know Kenjutsu. Yes, who do you believe instructed Asura and Indra? After that, you're on. I'll finish this task quickly. Naruto approached the bookcases with such assurance. When he opened one of the books, he discovered that it was written in a foreign language. Huh, I can read this language, but how? He replied. His face was etched with confusion. Grover entered the library with a big platter of food. Naruto was sitting on the floor with his back resting against one of the bookshelves when he turned to look around. On his hand was a large black book with a faded cover from age. Naruto, said the satyr, I brought you food. Naruto raised his head. He set the book aside and closed it. He said, thanks, and removed the tray from his grasp. Grover exclaimed, wow, so many books. As he observed the piles of books strewn all over Naruto. You must be tired after reading all those books, right? Not really. Your newly increased stamina has been caused by your new anatomy and Hashirama's cells that Obito implanted into your body to save your life, Hagoromo said. Naruto asked, what is this? As he picked up the glass that contained an odd liquid with a golden hue. Ambrosia, grinned Grover. It will refresh your energy, just drink it. Naruto drank some of the amber liquid. With stars in his eyes, he exclaimed, It tastes like Ichikura's ramen. He immediately drank the remaining ambrosia in one gulp and let out a long, satisfied sigh. Oh, man. That was tasty. Grover's perspiration fell. I knew you'd like it. Naruto remarked, thanks for the meal, Grover. He tasted the sweetness of the apple as he took a bite. Naruto, have you found any clue about your mother's identity? Huh? Naruto asked, his expression bewildered. What are you talking about? I know my mother is Kushina Uzumaki. I'm talking about your mother's godly identity. Naruto took another bite out of the apple and said, I'm not really looking for it. Grover pointed to the books and said, then why are you reading all those books? I just want to know more about Greek gods in this world. Oh, before Naruto said, so how is Nico? There was a brief pause. He is fine, said Grover, but why did you ask that? Because I can sense his emotions from here. From outside, he looks fine, but from the inside, he is sad, angry. He is deeply hurt by Bianca's decision of joining Artemis Hunters. Grover asked, what's wrong in her division? Then his eyes took on a distant, dreamy appearance. I can only imagine eternity with Artemis. Naruto said, I have no comment on that, in a deadpan tone. Anyway, what's that noise outside? Grover remarked, oh, right, you don't know about it. The campers are getting ready for the tomorrow night's capture. The flag game between Camp Half Blood and Hunters. The capture. The flag game? It is a long time tradition in Camp Half Blood. Naruto finished the remaining apple after Grover finished, saying, interesting. He picked up the book, opened it, and turned to the page he had been reading. I wish I could participate in the game, but I'm kind of busy right now. Grover picked up the tray and walked away, saying, okay. To himself, Naruto asked, now, where was I? The line he had been reading was there. Zeus is the king of the gods, the god of sky and weather, law, order, and justice. Hagoromo stated that he has at least 6 children every century. Yes. Zeus would have been Pervy Sage's favorite god if he were still with us today. Grover and Percy sat in the meadow talking about Percy's dream from the previous night while they watched the satyrs chase the wood nymphs through the snow. The dream concerned Luke Castellan, the treacherous demigod son of Hermes, and their missing friend Annabeth. Grover began to twirl his finger in the shaggy fur of his legs. He said, a cave ceiling collapsed on her? Percy said, yeah, what the heck does that mean? Grover gave a headshake. I don't know, but after what Zoe dreamed. Whoa. What do you mean? Zoe had a dream like that. I don't know, exactly. About 3 in the morning she came to the big house and demanded to talk to Chiron. She looked really panicked. Wait, how do you know this? Grover reddened. I was sort of camped outside the Artemis cabin. What for? Just to be, you know, near them. You're a stalker with hooves. I am not, anyway. I followed her to the big house and hid in a bush and watched the whole thing. She got real upset when Argus wouldn't let her in. It was kind of dangerous scene. Argus, a large blond man with eyes everywhere, was in charge of camp security. He didn't often show up unless there was a serious situation. "What did she say?" inquired Percy. Grover scowled. "Well, she starts talking really old-fashioned when she gets upset, so it was kind of hard to understand. But something about Artemis being in trouble and needing the hunters. And then she called Argus a boil. Brained loud. I think that's a bad thing. And then he called her. Whoa, wait. How could Artemis be in trouble? Well, finally Chiron came out in his pajamas and his horsetail in curlers in. He wears curlers in his tail? Grover put his hand over his mouth. Sorry, added Percy. Go on. Well, Zoe said she needed permission to leave camp immediately. Chiron refused. He reminded Zoe that the hunters were supposed to stay here until they received orders from Artemis. And she said, Grover gasped. She said, how are we to get orders from Artemis if Artemis is lost? What do you mean lost? Like she needs directions? No, I think she meant gone. Taken. Kidnapped. Kidnapped? Percy struggled to comprehend that notion. How would you kidnap an immortal goddess? Is that even possible? Well, yeah. I mean, it happened to Persephone. But she was like, the goddess of flowers. Grover appeared insulted. Springtime. Whatever. Artemis is a lot more powerful than that. Who could kidnap her? And why? Grover gave a pitiful shake of his head. I don't know. Kronos? He can't be that powerful already. Can he? Kronos had been in minuscule fragments when they had last seen him. After the Titan God battle thousands of years ago, the gods used his own scythe to cut him to pieces, scattering his remains throughout Tartarus. If he remained a heap of evil bark mulch, they failed to see how he could physically defeat Artemis. I don't know, said Grover. I think somebody would know if Kronos had re-formed. The gods would be more nervous. But still, it's weird, you having a nightmare the same night as Zoe. It's almost like they're connected, stated Percy. A satyr skidded on his hooves as he pursued a red-headed tree nymph across the frozen meadow. As he ran toward her, she giggled and extended her arms. She abruptly transformed into a Scotch pine, and he quickly planted a kiss on the trunk. Ah, love, said Grover in a dreamy voice. Percy reflected on Zoe's nightmare, which she had experienced just a few hours after his own. I've got to talk to Zoe. Grover pulled something from his coat pocket and said, before you do, it was a travel brochure. Style 3. Full display. You remember what you said, about how it was weird the hunters just happened to show up at Westover Hall. I think they might have been scouting us. Scouting us? What do you mean? He handed the brochure to Percy. The hunters of Artemis were the subject. A wise choice for your future was printed on the front. There were images of young maidens shooting bows, hunting, and pursuing monsters. Health benefits. Immortality and what it means for you was one of the captions. And tomorrow is a boy-free day. I found that in Annabeth's backpack, Grover remarked. Percy gazed at him indifferently. I don't understand. Well, it seems to me, maybe Annabeth was thinking about joining. They were interrupted by some girlish giggles before they could carry on their conversation. As they looked around, they noticed some girls from the Aphrodite cabin moving in a specific direction. Haughty, and new haughty in the camp, were among the words they heard. Grover inquired, where are they going? Naruto was working out every day during the brief respite he had received after reading several dozen books. The ninja pouches were resting next to his orange jacket, which was on the ground. He was completely unaffected by the bitterly cold weather. He was doing the frog kata that Fukasaku had taught him during the sage training while wearing the black sleeveless T-shirt. This style featured a wide variety of katas, many of which dealt with power, speed, and balance. As she and her sisters watched Naruto's intense workout, one of the girls asked, Girls, can you see his muscles? With a dreamy expression in her eyes. Yeah. Naruto launched several bursts of fast, moving punches and kicks into the void. I can watch him train a whole day, night, he is hot. But who is he? The voice said, Naruto, and was male. They recognized the voice well. Glancing back, they noticed Grover and Percy. His name is Naruto Uzumaki, Grover stated. One girl remarked, Girls, I think he's done. Naruto stood up and put on the jacket after bending over to strap his final ninja pouch to his right thigh. As he turned to walk away, he was encircled by 6 attractive girls. What can I do for you, girls? He replied. He felt uneasy because of the hungry expression in their eyes. This gives me a bad feeling. After that, he was inundated with questions, and chaos ensued. How old are you? Where are you from? Are you dating someone? Naruto thought, now I understand how Sasuke felt. It's really scary to be surrounded by horny girls who are stripping you with their eyes. Perhaps his fangirls were the true reason he fled the leaf. He pretended to be the ninja he was before the girls could go any farther than they had already. A lucky guy, said Grover. Percy gave a head nod. Grover was abruptly engulfed in a cloud of smoke, and Naruto replaced him as it dissipated. Hey. Naruto. How? Grover, where are you? Percy inquired. His best friend had been there only moments before. Naruto gestured toward the females. Turning, Percy noticed a big drop of sweat on the back of his head and saw 6 attractive girls tightly hugging a very red-faced Grover without realizing they were hugging a stayer rather than Naruto. Lucky, he thought, a little enviously. After saying, sorry, gotta go before they know, Naruto's body began to flicker away. Why are you here, Grover? When she saw the stayer, not the blonde-haired hottie, one girl asked. That hottie is where? Yes, Grover, where is he? They left him dazed on the snow-covered ground and went off to look for the blonde beauty. Man, are you alright? As he passed his best friend, Percy inquired. I was in heaven, Grover remarked as he reclined on the snowy surface. Crossing his arms and lowering his head to the table, Naruto moaned as he pushed the books away from himself. Are you okay? Asked Hagoromo. Naruto muttered to himself, after reading all about Greek gods and those old titans, my head is spinning. Excellent. What? Well, you prove me wrong. I assumed that after reading 2 and 3 books, you would lose patience quickly. Prepare for your first sword lesson. Naruto's eyes grew wide. Are you referring to? Indeed. With a broad smile, Naruto got to his feet and exclaimed, yes, he cheerfully cheered. Hagoromo grinned and said, now, create a clone and leave him here to read more about the Greek gods and titans. Naruto made a T-seal with his hands. Shadow clone jutsu. Read the books about Greek gods and titans, he ordered, and a single clone appeared. With folded arms, the clone said, and why did I do that? Because I'm the original, says Naruto, gesturing to himself. Before picking up the book Naruto had been reading, his clone muttered something, and Naruto shook his head at his clone's actions before vanishing. The book was returned to the table by Naruto's clone, who smirked and sealed it with a single hand. Boss didn't say I couldn't get a clone's help. Another clone materialized next to him, grinning broadly, and said, go and read the books on Greek gods and titans. Take care of it yourself. The freshly created clone said, you're not the boss. But I am senior, so listen to your senior, junior. Whatever. On the pavilion floor, Chiron's hoof thundered. Heroes. You know the rules, he called. The boundary line is the creek. The west woods will be taken by the blue team, Camp Half Blood. The east woods will be taken by the red team, Artemis Hunters. I'll be the battlefield medic and referee. Please don't intentionally maim. You can use any magic item. To your places, he observed as the red and blue teams went to protect their individual flags. So you need your opponent team's flag to win the game. Chiron was taken aback by the voice and jerked his head around to look back over his shoulder, where Naruto was standing. Oh, did you come here to play the game, Mr. Uzumaki? A clone has a limited lifespan, so he should have a little time to himself. Nah, I just came here to watch the game, Naruto said, shaking his head. I just hope boss will not find out about my action too soon. I'm not sure why, but, as he executed some simple sword kata, Naruto muttered, I feel like hitting my clone right now. Sage had taught him an elegant, lightning, fast style that emphasized speed and the use of centrifugal force to inflict damage. Good, Hagoromo said, you have power and speed. With a black sword in his hand, Naruto practiced endlessly, swing after swing, moving through the moves with the speed and fluidity of water sliding off tree leaves. You must improve your balance and footing, but above all, you need a real sword. After completing the sword kata, Naruto straightened up and stabbed the ground with the sword's tip. Where can I find a real sword that will fit me perfectly? He shifted the sword he had practiced with back into the truth, seeking balls that gradually crumbled into nothingness, and asked, most likely himself. Sensing that someone was there, he turned to his left and saw an 8-year-old girl wearing a plain brown robe with a scarf around her head, her long mousy brown hair and her warm, cozy red fire eyes. Your answer is in your ninja pouch, she said, pointing to the pouch that was strapped around his right thigh. Who are you? Hestia, the goddess of the hearth. After giving her a thoughtful glance, he questioned, do all goddesses enjoy assuming the form of young girls? Your personality differs greatly from that of both of your parents, said the goddess of heart, raising an eyebrow. Her statement somewhat surprised him. How did you find out about both of my parents, since I've never mentioned my dad to anyone, he inquired. I'm the only person other than your parents know about your true parentage. Who are my parents, then? It's not my place to tell you that, but I'm pretty sure you will meet them soon. How much he told himself or others that he was content with knowing his parents' mortal forms. It wasn't that he didn't want to know their immortal forms. Okay, he said, his voice a little disappointed. But what does it mean my personality is much different from my parents'? Personality that your parents had in their mortal form is not as same as in their immortal form. What's the reason? Ask your parents when you meet them. A moment of silence ensued, and then Hestia said once more, you are unique. What? You have an altruistic heart, which is so uncommon these days, especially among gods like us. Don't ever alter who you are. With this, Naruto was at a loss for words. Thanks. Hestia nodded and then began to fade away. Digging his hand into the pouch, Naruto thought, another strange goddess. What is this? He silently read a scroll that he had taken out and rolled open, saying, it is from Itachi. This will come in handy later, Itachi Uchiha. When Naruto channeled his chakra through the storage seal on the end of the scroll, a familiar sword was lying on the ground after a puff of smoke and a brilliant flash of light appeared. Naruto declared, it's Snake. Freak's sword, recognizing the blade of Orochimaru, the most notorious criminal. Hagoromo, who was also well acquainted with the sword, remarked, Kusanagi no Tsurugi, the legendary sword. A double-edged GN with a golden hilt, Kusanagi no Tsurugi was a truly beautiful, lethal work of art. Her blade was sharp and covered in poison of unparalleled potency, and she was rumored to be able to cut through nearly anything. Naruto moved forward and used the hilt to pick up Kusanagi. He took a closer look at her and found that she was light and well balanced. He practiced swinging her a few times before saying, well, good. All I have to do now is figure out how to carry her covertly. Kusanagi transformed into a tiny white snake and curled around Naruto's wrist as if he had heard him. The sake was cold, but not wet or slimy, and then he felt nothing at all. The snake melted into his skin and turned into a fierce, multicolored tattoo on the back of his right hand, with her grimly fanged business end. I love this sword. Kairen and Naruto emerged from the woods, and the hunters cheered as both teams gathered on the creek. The hunters prevail. For the 56th time in a row, Kairen muttered after making the announcement without delight. Jackson Perseus. Talia shouted and rushed in Percy's direction. She smelled like rotten eggs, so Naruto pinched his nose and turned to Zoe, asking, where can I buy fart arrows? Before turning her head away, the hunter gave him her well-known, intense glare. He reasoned that she should relax a bit. It took all of Percy's willpower not to cower as everyone flinched and retreated due to Talia's shield aegis, and blue sparks flickered on her armor in her rage. What were you thinking, for heaven's sake? She yelled. Crinkling his fists, Percy said, Talia, I got the flag, I saw an opportunity and I seized it, he said, shaking the hunter's flag in her face. At their base, I was. But there was no flag left, Talia shouted. We would have prevailed if you hadn't butted in. You were carrying too many. Oh, so I'm to blame? I didn't say that. Oh no, some of the campers gasped, and a few hunters choked back laughter as Talia shoved Percy, sending him reeling backward 10 feet into the water. I apologize, I didn't mean to, Talia said, going pale. With a roar of rage, Percy sent a wave rushing from the creek, soaking Talia from head to toe and crashing into her face. Yeah, Percy growled as he got to his feet, I didn't mean to, either. Talia's breathing was labored. Enough, Kairen gave the order. However, Talia extended her spear, saying, Seaweed brain, would you like some? Returning, Percy said, go for it, Pinecone face, Riptide, he raised his sword. The two demigods were only a few steps away, their weapons raised in preparation for battle, but before they could move, they were lying face down on the snowy ground, unable to get to their feet. You've shitty teamwork, Naruto remarked, holding Percy and Talia to the ground. No wonder you lost. Whoa. He didn't move at all. Mummers erupted among the hunters and campers after one camper said this. Mister, thank you, Uzumaki, for putting an end to this needless altercation, Kairen said as he moved closer to them. Naruto stood up and let go of both demigods, saying, you're welcome. Before she picked up her sphere, Talia glared at Naruto. Percy didn't say anything, but he lost his temper when he noticed something in the woods. Kalia turned to see what he was staring at, and as it approached them, the hunters and campers gasped. It was covered in a murky green mist. Chiron sounded anxious as he said, "This is impossible, she has never left the attic, never." The Oracle of Delphi shuffled forward until she stood in the middle of the group, a withered mummy, not the wrapped-in cloth kind, but a human female body shriveled to a husk. With the spirit of Delphi inside her, wearing a headband over long black hair, a tie, dyed sundress, and numerous beaded necklaces. Her eyes were glassy white slits, as if the real eyes had been replaced by marbles, and her face had thin, leathery skin over her skull. No one dared to move as the mist curled around their feet, turning the snow a sickly green color. Her voice then hissed inside their heads. The oracle turned clearly to Zoe Nightshade, and the voice said, "I am the spirit of Delphi, speaker of the prophecies of Phoebus Apollo, slayer of the mighty Python. Come, seeker, ask. What can I do to assist my goddess?" Zoe swallowed. When the oracle's mouth opened, green mist poured out, and everyone saw the hazy image of a mountain with a girl standing at its bare peak, Artemis, but she was shackled to the rocks, kneeling with her hands up as though to repel an assailant, and she appeared to be in pain. The oracle said, 6 shall be chosen for the quest. But one shall join them late, they shall go west to the goddess in chains. One shall be lost in the land without rain, the bane of Olympus shows the trail. United as one, hunters and campers shall prevail. The Titan's curse must one withstand, one shall perish by a parent's hand. Lost son shall rise to break the ties of fate, and he shall save others before too late. She sat down on a rock and grew as motionless as she had been in the attic as the mist swung and retreated into the oracle's mouth like a great green serpent. The clone of Naruto said, "I'll have to tell boss about this." Observing that all eyes were on the oracle, he thought, "This is my chance." He stepped back a little from the hunters and campers and vanished into thin air without anyone noticing. The Council of Cabin Leaders decided that 3 campers and 3 hunters would embark on a mission to save the goddess Artemis before the winter solstice after much deliberation and disagreement. Zoe, Artemis' lieutenant, got to his feet instantly, as everyone had anticipated. "I shall go, of course, and I will take Phoebe, she is our best tracker," she said. The boy with the mischievous face, Travis Stoll, asked cautiously, "The big girl who likes to hit people on the head?" Zoe gave a nod. Connor Stoll went on, "The one who put the arrows in my helmet?" "Yes," Zoe yelled. "Why?" The Stoll brothers, Connor and Travis, were tall, thin boys with brown hair that hung in their blue eyes. Both boys served as the Hermes cabin's chief counselors. He had elf-like features, raised eyebrows, a sardonic smile, and a gleam in his eyes, as if he were about to drop a firecracker down your shirt, just like the majority of Hermes' other children. "Oh, nothing," replying Travis. He held up a large silver t-shirt that read, "Artemis the Moon Goddess, Fall Hunting Tour 2002, with a long list of national parks and other items underneath. Just that we have a t-shirt for her from the camp store. It's a collector's item. She was admiring it. You want to give it to her?" With a sigh, Zoe accepted the t-shirt. "As I was saying, I will take Phoebe, and I wish Bianca to go." Bianca appeared in disbelief. "Me? But, I'm so new, I wouldn't be any good." "You will do fine," determined Zoe. "There is no better way to prove thyself." Everyone looked at Naruto, who walked over to a chair and took a seat. "Who made you the lieutenant of Artemis?" they asked. Anger made Zoe's face flush. "How dare thee? I mean no offense, but this quest is an equivalent to S-rank mission of my world. Zoe and Bianca is not ready for this. She has little to no fighting experience. If anything happens to her, Nico will be the one hurt most. I'll protect her." Naruto looked up at the t-shirt that Stoll brothers had given her and said, "Yeah, I can see that." Somehow, he had been able to take it. Right in front of everyone, he held it up to his nose and took a whiff. "Blood is odorous to me, and acid," said Hagoromo via their mental connection. Naruto tossed the t-shirt in Chiron's direction. "It smells really bad." Chiron's eyes widened as he smelled the t-shirt. He jerked his head in Stoll brothers' direction and said, "Centaur blood." His irate gaze was fixed on both brothers, making them anxious and causing them to perspire. "Boys, you have now crossed your limit." Naruto fixed Zoe with his gaze. "How will you protect Bianca and at the same time, face the opponent that your goddess has failed to defeat? That is none of thy business. You're stubborn, Zoe. That's why I'm coming with you." Turning to Dionysus, Zoe said, "Absolutely not. He is a boy. He cannot travel with us." Mr. D was reading a magazine and appeared disinterested. He flipped through the magazine pages and said, "Well, I can't say anything on this. He is not a camper." Everyone was taken aback by this. This was the first time he had sided with someone. "That's unexpected," Chiron thought. Then he looked at Percy and said, "We've 4 volunteers now. Anyone else?" "Me." Grover got to his feet so quickly that he knocked over the ping-pong table. He brushed scraps of a ping-pong ball and cracker crumbs from his lap. "Anything to help Artemis." Zoe's nose wrinkled. "I think not, Satyr. You are not even a half-blood." Talia remarked, "But he is a camper, and he's got a satyr's senses and woodland magic. Can you play a tracker song yet, Grover?" "Absolutely." Zoe faltered. "Very well," declared she. "And the last camper?" Talia looked around and said, "I'll go." She dared no one to question her. Percy exclaimed, "Whoa, wait a sec," as he became acutely aware that he was not part of the group and that they had reached number 6. "I want to go too." Grover said, "Oh," as he became abruptly conscious of the issue. "Whoa, yeah, I forgot. Percy has to go." "I didn't mean, I'll stay. Percy should go in my place." "He cannot," stated Zoe. "He is a boy. I won't have hunters traveling with another boy." When Percy opened his mouth to complain, Naruto cut him off. "He can come with us." "Sorry, but he cannot. Your group already has reached its limit," said Chiron. Naruto replied, "You can't count me in this group. I'm neither a hunter nor a camper." "He is right," Mr. D declared, shocking everyone once more. "Why is he acting strangely today? Why is he siding with Naruto?" Chiron pondered. He couldn't disobey a divine decree. "The quest is for Artemis. Talia, Percy and Grover will accompany Zoe, Bianca, Phoebe," he stated to Naruto, "and Naruto. You shall leave at first light. And may the gods," he looked at Dionysus, present company included, "we hope, be with you." After everyone had left, Naruto, Chiron, and Dionysus were the only ones left inside. Naruto approached the god of wine. Using a scroll, he opened 5 bottles of sake. "A deal is deal. These are bottles of Mount Myoboku fire sake, strongest sake known to man, and toads," he told Dionysus. "Good," said Mr. D. The bottles vanished when he waved his hand. At last, Chiron comprehended everything. "You bribed him to get him on your side," he stated. "It wasn't a bribe. It was an offering," Naruto remarked with an internal glare. Chiron looked over at Dionysus. "What about your restriction, Mr. D?" Mr. D grinned. "Those bottles are for a special occasion." When Naruto opened his eyes, he was surrounded by white, empty space. Other than one man, there was nothing. He was tall and good looking. His blonde hair was the same color as his blue eyes, but it was wilder. "Dad," said Naruto. Minato gasped as Naruto punched him in the stomach, causing a sharp pain. "Hey, son. This is for not telling me about you and Mom being gods. This is unfair. You didn't hit your mother when you met her, but you hit me twice. Why?" "Life is not always fair, Dad." After shaking his head, Minato grinned. "How are you, my son?" Arms folded, Naruto said. "I'm still mad on you and Mom." Minato's face melted with a smile. "We're sorry, Naruto. The elemental nations doesn't come under our rules. It left us very few options to help you, but we did everything. I don't remember anything you and Mom have done for me. Who do you think gave you all those birthday gifts, free Ichikura ramen coupons and monthly allowances till you become a genin? I thought it was Gramps. It was Naruto." After giving it some thought, Naruto nodded. "Dad, are you here to tell me who you and Mom really are?" he said. "There is a time for everything, and I believe this is not the right time." "Yeah, right. Life is what it is. It is not always fair. We don't always get what we want and think we deserve." Naruto shot him a sardonic glance. "You are using my own words on me." Minato grinned. "Yeah, playback is sweet," he acknowledged. "Anyway, how are you taking all things that suddenly happened in your life?" "I can't tell how I truly feel about everything. Earth is different from the elemental nations in many ways. It has more than 1,000 languages and cultures, advanced technology, and many more. Then there are Greek gods, like you and Mom. God of the sun, goddess of the moon, goddess of love, god of super, pervert. Wait a minute, what was the last one? God of super, pervert. Who is he?" "Zeus." Minato almost collapsed on his face. "Naruto, you shouldn't say something like this about Zeus. He is the king of the gods, the god of sky and weather, law, order, and justice." Naruto remarked, He is also one who has most demigod children, but why are you defending him? Minato put his signature. Naruto nodded in agreement as he said, let's change the topic, shall we? He raised his hand and said, I've got something for you. A golden light then spread out. He had a golden egg with the red ancient Greek marking over its shell in his hands when it cleared. An aura of golden red was emanating from it, and it was roughly the size of an ostrich egg. Happy birthday. Naruto grabbed the egg out of his dad's hand. Thanks for the gift, but what am I going to do with a big egg? Asked the man. Can't you see it? Naruto fixed the egg with his gaze. He switched his gaze to his dual jujutsu. At last, he was able to see what he had previously been blind to. Chakra in its raw state. Inside the egg was a creature composed of raw chakra. Do you like your gift? Yeah. Naruto's gaze remains on the egg, but how am I going to carry it? The egg transformed into a tiny golden pearl in an instant. Never mind. Minato ruffled his son's hair and grinned. Even so, he was taller than him. His son nodded to him before vanishing from the world. Now, wake up, or you'll be late for the quest of saving Artemis. TCH, I don't understand why they're taking the troublemaker son of Poseidon with them. You always have a problem with demigod children of Poseidon and Hades. Minato turned to face his wife and said, Kushina, you know that you're the last person I want to hear this from. You literally hate almost every demigod. After folding her arm, Kushina uttered the words, I blame you for that. As she waited for the final two members of the group on half, Blood Hill, Zoe raged, where are they? Sorry, I'm late. Zoe nearly jumped when she heard the voice behind her. She turned and gave Naruto a fierce look. Don't do that again, Uzumaki. And why are they late? What? A perplexed Naruto inquired. Taliah asked Zoe again, why are you late? She didn't want to spend any more time on a pointless argument. Oh, Naruto said, turning to face Zoe, I apologize, I got lost on the path of life. What kind of excuse is this? A very good one, grinned Naruto. He turned to face the hunter who had posed that query to him. She had ginger colored hair and was large and beefy. You must be Phoebe. It's nice to meet you. I'm Naruto Uzumaki. With a disgusted expression on her face, Phoebe averted her gaze. Naruto let out a sigh. What's wrong with hunters in general? He searched the area for the son of Poseidon. He inquired, where is Percy? Chiron sighed and said, I've searched everywhere, but I haven't found him. We can't afford to waste any more time searching one irresponsible boy, said Zoe. She prevented Grover from saying anything that would have defended his best friend. Our goddess needs us. We must leave immediately. According to Chiron, I got the keys to the van right here. 6 quest takers piled into a rather attractive van as the quest for Artemis officially began after a final farewell and a warning from Zoe regarding her hunter's safety. The first issue in the Artemis quest was affecting 5 of our 6 quest participants. Driving at its worst, Zoe Nightshade. She was swerving through traffic like a crazy person trying to die while driving like a crazy person. She barely managed to get back in the lane after passing a car with other vehicles approaching head-on. Hey! Watch where you're going. A driver shouted at her through the window of his car. Stupid, man, Zoe muttered to herself. Observing the DC, she changed gears and entered a turn as a lane approached. The rear end of the car skidded before gliding due to the momentum. Pressing the accelerator, she accelerated to 100 miles per hour. Taliah yelled, slow down, Nightshade. At last, the van began to slow down. It entered central Washington after crossing the Potomac River. Grover said, Zoe, we're there. Zoe pulled into a parking spot next to one of the large buildings that lined the mall after driving across the street. Leaning out the window, Naruto spoke. He noticed the large structure marked National Air and Space Museum. The Smithsonian, mumbled Taliah. She unlocked the van's door and stepped out onto the ground. Naruto also stepped out. He kept staring at the big structure in front of them. The mist is thick today, Phoebe said frowningly. She stooped and rubbed her hand across the snow. And the power is shifted. Something powerful came through here. Shutting his eyes, Naruto allowed his senses to roam freely. We're not alone. 2 strong taints are in there along with 1 familiar, he continued. He had his eyes open, but they were focused on a specific spot. Who is close to Percy, though? I recognize that energy signature. Wearing his invisibility cap, Percy's gaze was fixed on the black sedan that had been pursuing his companions. He watched as the black sedan's door opened. A gray-haired man with a military buzz cut emerged. He had on a black overcoat and dark shades. The man pulled out his cell phone and spoke into it. He then checked to make sure everything was in order. Percy recognized his face and froze as he turned toward him. It was Westover Hall's manticore, Dr. Thorne. If he has made it through that cliff fall. After giving it some thought, Percy followed Thorne. Thorne ascended the Museum of Natural History's stairs. Percy followed Dr. Thorne through a large room filled with dinosaur skeletons and mastodons, marked with a large sign that read "Closed for private event." Outside were 2 guards. Thorne was given access to the doors. Before they closed them again, Percy had to run to get inside. What Percy saw inside was awful. He was in a large circular room that surrounded the second floor with a balcony. On the balcony stood 2 monsters, reptilian women with double snake trunks for legs, and at least a dozen mortal guards. The Scythian Draceni. The worst of it wasn't that. Luke Castellan, an old foe, stood between the snake women. He was an Olympian trader and the son of Hermes, a demigod. He had a horrible appearance. He appeared to have aged 10 years in a matter of months, as evidenced by his pale skin and nearly gray blonde hair. Luke and Thorne called him the General, and Percy watched him. His skin was light brown, his dark hair was slicked back, and he was tall and muscular. He was dressed in a pricey brown silk suit. He had enormous shoulders, hands that could break a flagpole in 2, and a vicious face. He had stone-like eyes. After his first attempt to resurrect a monstrous creature ended in a highly embarrassing manner, the general ordered another mortal guard to bring the Tyrannosaurus teeth back to life. To fulfill his orders, the guard sprinted off. "Imbeciles," the general silently said. "This explains why I don't use mortals," Luke stated. "They're unreliable." The general declared, "They're violent, easily bought, and weak-minded. I love them." After a minute, the guard, his hands clenched with big, sharp teeth, hurried into the room. "Excellent," answered the general. He scaled the balcony railing and leapt 20 feet to the ground. The marble floor beneath his leather shoes cracked where he landed. He rubbed his shoulders and stood, squirming. "Curse my stiff neck." A guard said, "Another hot pad, sir? More Tylenol?" The general snatched up the teeth and brushed off his silk suit, saying, "No, it will pass." He grinned and held up one of his teeth, saying, "I shall do this myself." "Dinosaur teeth. Huh. Those foolish mortals don't even know when they have dragon teeth in their possession. And not just any dragon teeth. These come from the ancient Sybaris herself. They shall do nicely." He put all 12 of them in the ground. He picked up the watering can after that. He threw the can aside, spread his arms wide, and sprayed the soil with the red liquid. "Rise." The earth shuddered. A solitary, bony hand emerged from the earth, snatching at the atmosphere. The general's gaze shifted to the balcony. "Quickly, do you have the scent?" According to one of the snake ladies, "Yes, Lord," she produced a silvery cloth sash similar to the hunter's. "Excellent," answered the general. "Once my warriors catch its scent, they will pursue its owner relentlessly. Nothing can stop them, no weapons known to have blood or hunter. They will tear the hunters and their allies to shreds. Toss it here." Skeletons rose up from the floor as he finished. The general had planted 12 of them, 1 for each tooth. They had nothing in common with skeletons from Halloween. They were getting bigger. They became men, but they were men with yellow eyes, gray skin, and modern clothing, such as combat boots, camouflage pants, and gray muscle shirts. Their bones glistened beneath their transparent flesh, resembling X-ray pictures. When Percy realized that the cap of invisibility wouldn't fool it, one of them gave him a direct look, freezing the boy in place. The scarf fluttered down toward the general's hand after the snake lady let it go. Percy was aware that the warriors would hunt Zoe and the others until they vanished if the general gave it to them. He sprinted and leapt to his feet, crashing into the fighters and grabbing the scarf as it flew. "What's this?" yelled the general. A skeleton warrior hissed as Percy landed at his feet. "An intruder," snarled the general. "One cloaked in darkness. Seal the doors." When Percy heard a tearing sound and realized the skeleton warrior had torn a piece off his sleeve, he ran for the door. Ignoring it, he had barely arrived at the doors when he was hurled away from them by the general's energy. Everyone could see Percy after he slammed into the wall and his invisibility cap fell off. Luke gave him a growl. "Seize him." The son of Poseidon was approached by 2 mortal guards before Naruto appeared. He took one of the guards' rifles and dragged the gun-wielding man away. Then he threw him at someone else, knocking them both unconscious. "Need help, Percy?" asked Naruto. As the bullet fired by the remaining guards halted in mid-air and fell to the ground, he raised his hand palm forward. Then he retrieved 3 shuriken from his pouch with his free hand and threw them at the general and the skeleton warriors. Shuriken Shadow Clone Jutsu. 3 shuriken rained down on their targets after turning 3,000. The general flared his power to destroy the remaining shuriken after catching the one that had gotten too close to his body in his hands, declaring, "This won't work on me, boy." He used his bare fist to smash the shuriken. "Then maybe, this will." Behind the general, Naruto held a blue sphere in his palm that was spinning. "Rasengan!" he yelled as he struck his back with the blue ball. The marble floor was literally destroyed when the Rasengan exploded. In a flash, Naruto was standing beside Percy. "We have to go, Percy." "I don't think it will hold them much long," he replied. Percy turned around. The skeleton warriors were reforming and picking their own bodies, which horrified him. He exclaimed, "Naruto, they have my scent," in a panic. "No, they haven't," Naruto stated, clutching the cloth that the skeletal fighter had torn from his sleeve. "How?" He grabbed Percy's shoulder and fled, saying, "A ninja never reveals his secrets." One of the guards approached the general and knelt down. In an attempt to be as courteous as possible, he said, "Sir, are you all right?" Grabbing him by the neck, the general threw him over the side. He uttered an ancient Greek curse and stood up slowly. As he lowered his hands, he saw his ichor, or golden blood, slowly fall to the ground. "General," said Thorn. The statement, "I underestimate that boy," was his. His dark aura and the tone of his voice made everyone shudder. "What is his name?" The answer was, "Naruto Uzumaki," Luke said. "He is from the elemental nations." For a split second, the general's eyes widened. "We need to deal with that boy before he creates any problem for us." Opening his hand, he examined the small sliver of orange fabric he had torn from the boy's coat. He threw it at a warrior with a skeleton. The piece of cloth was caught by one skeleton warrior. Before passing it to his friends, he held it up to his nose and inhaled the aroma. "Finish him!" exclaimed the general. Naruto released Percy's shoulder as they entered the Air and Space Museum. Suddenly feeling lightheaded, the son of Poseidon collapsed to the ground. "Ah, you're feeling the side effects of the body flicker. Don't worry, it's just for a bit," said Naruto. "Anyway, I gotta go, so see y'all later." "Where are?" Percy looked up as he recovered, but Naruto was not there. With a sigh, he rose and headed for the entrance. The museum's central section consisted of a single, enormous room with airplanes and rockets suspended from the ceiling. Anyone could view the exhibits from a variety of heights thanks to the 3 levels of balconies that curved around. Only a few families and a couple of kid-led tour groups were there, so it wasn't very crowded. Percy turned to see the hunters, Grover, and Talia. Literally, he bumped into Talia. She was knocked into an Apollo space capsule when he slammed into her while he was speeding up the ramp to the top floor balcony. Grover gave a startled yelp. Before Percy could get his bearings, the hunter's arrows were aimed at his chest and had been marked. At last, they recognized him when Zoe asked, "Jackson?" "Percy," exclaimed Grover. "Thank goodness." Talia gave Percy a fierce look and demanded an explanation, asking, "Where have you been?" "He's here, Luke," Percy said. Talia's eyes instantly melted with anger. She touched her silver wristband. "Where?" Percy filled them in on all the events that transpired at the Natural History Museum. Zoe looked shocked and asked, "The general is here?" "That is impossible, you lie." "Why would I lie?" "Ask Naruto, if you don't believe me, he was also there." Phoebe stepped aside and said, "Stop lying. Uzumaki is with us the whole time." Percy simply stood there in shock, gazing at Naruto, who was standing behind Phoebe. Naruto said, "So you met Boss," in a cool, bored voice. "Boss?" inquired Percy. "He's taking about me, Percy." Like a scared horse, Percy swerved abruptly to the side. His mouth fell open in an oafish gape of surprise as his green eyes widened and he looked back at another Naruto. He was not much better than Talia, Grover, and the hunters. Both Naruto exchanged looks with each other. After waving at them from behind, Naruto vanished in smoke plumes. "That was my clone," Naruto clarified to dispel any misunderstanding. Bianca said, "You can clone yourself?" Naruto grinned and said, "Yes, I can make 1,000. "A boy who can make thousands of himself," Zoe whispered to herself. "Oh, great. Just great," thought Percy. 1,000 clones. How he might use the 1,000 copies of himself. Naruto responded, "Anyway, Percy is telling the truth about the general and there are also the skeleton warriors." Talia yelled, "What? How many?" 12, Percy uttered after he eventually snapped out of his reverie and realized what they were discussing. "And that's not all. That guy, the general, He said he was sending something, a playmate, to distract you over here. A monster. In an attempt to relax, Zoe inhaled deeply. If Percy is telling the truth, she added, we have no time to argue, we must leave now. Naruto sniffed the air and asked, what is this weird smell? Grover inhaled the scent, and his eyes grew wide. Everyone move! Exclaimed Phoebe, looking up. A roar sounded, and 7 teenagers shifted aside as a shadow passed over them. A lion, big enough to be a pick. A truck, landed where they had been. Its claws shone and appeared silver, and its fur glistened and gave off a more molten gold appearance, almost matching Naruto's blonde hair. They showed gleaming fangs that were dripping saliva. Grover let out a gasp. The Nemean lion. There was a great roar from the lion. With haste, Naruto threw some shuriken at the lion that was aiming for his head. He was shocked when the shuriken seemed insignificant as it bounced off the big cat's fur. Damn! He exclaimed as he produced a kunai, wrapped its handle with an explosive tag, and hurled it in the direction of the large feline. The kunai landed directly under the forepaws of the lion. Just as the explosive tag exploded, the lion looked down, roaring in agony at being blinded. Naruto leapt to his feet and landed next to Zoe. He said, any suggestion? Yes, Zoe replied. Try to keep it distracted. Well, I can do that. Naruto sprinted in the monster's direction. Leaping to his feet, he punched the lion across the face with such force that it sent him flying backwards several feet. Grover exclaimed, wow, Grover, concentrate on your work. Talia yelled, clear the area. Sorry. In a matter of seconds, the hunters showered the beast with hundreds of arrows, but not a single arrow could penetrate his fur. The lion stood up and started toward the hunters, crushing the arrows under his enormous paws as he roared angrily. Use Kusanagi, Naruto. According to Hagoromo, she can cut through nearly anything. Thank you, old man, for reminding me about her, I nearly forgot. Naruto directed his chakra toward the tattoos of snakes that covered his wrist. The snake resurrected and scuttled in the direction of his open palm. He shut his hand. Before changing into the fabled blade Kusanagi, the snake hissed in pain. In order to avoid being crushed beneath the lion's enormous paw, he immediately leapt out of the way. He sprinted forward, clutching the handle of Kusanagi. Before he vanished in a flash of speed, his heterochromia eyes glistened. With his sword, he cut. As she effortlessly pierced the creature's skin, the sword of Kusanagi was regarded as the sword of legend, capable of slicing through nearly anything. The lion attempted to rake him with his claws while roaring in agony. All he could do was leap back. Naruto sharpened the blade by using Kusanagi to channel his wind chakra. With the sword raised above his head, he prepared to stab the lion in the head. He was suddenly struck by a dark green blob of poisonous acid. Phew! That almost hit me! Exclaimed Naruto, his blood-red eyes spinning quickly like a black tomo. He noticed a growing black spot that was melting and hissing where he had been standing a moment before. I was relieved to switch places with a shuriken. After deactivating the dual dujutsu by closing his eyes, he rose from his crouched position. This, said Grover, his voice quivering with fear, is not good. The lion had been aided by another monster. It was a massive, scaly creature that resembled a lizard, with 9 heads and long necks. It had a tail, clawed hands, and numerous rows of razor-sharp teeth. At once, Percy recognized it. He had previously resisted it. Hydra, he said. We can't fight with both, Bianca expressed in a trembling voice. Naruto said, yes, we can, and landed next to her. I'll take care of the lizard. The 6 of you, deal with the big cat and kill him before he can harm others. But only your weapon is better suited to fight with him, Phoebe replied. Pointing to the lion, who was attempting to maintain his balance, Naruto remarked, he is weak now. He charged at the Hydra, saying, Kusanagi's poison has entered his bloodstream. Just don't cut off the heads, Talia shouted. 2 more will just grow back for each one you cut off. Only other heads attempted to bite Naruto off after he leapt over the railing and landed on top of one Hydra's head. He leapt on top of a second head and drove the sword further into its skull with flawless body control. The pain racked the head. The Nemean lion let out a roar. The lion flinched as Talia moved into his path while brandishing Aegis. Ruar, hi-ya, exclaimed Talia, back. As if the shield were a raging fire, the lion snarled and clawed the air before retreating. His muscles tensed, ready to leap, he slowly crawled backwards. Percy noticed. Hey! He rushed at the beast and used Riptide to slit it. It was a good blow, but the blade only made a clanging noise against his fur. Come on, please. I didn't even scratch him, but Naruto's sword cut through his fur with ease. The lion pushed him against the railing and tore off a piece of his coat as it raked him with its claws. The son of the sea god had no choice but to turn and jump as he sprang at him, 1,000-pound monster. But he quickly came to the conclusion that the worst way to save your life was to jump off the railing, which was so high above the ground. The lion jumped after Percy, but Naruto caught him in midair and kicked him away. After securely placing him on the wing of an antiquated silver aircraft, he exhaled. Clone, Percy pondered. When the lion leapt onto the plane, it pitched, nearly spilling Percy 3 stories below. The cords holding the plane started to groan as the lion approached Percy. Percy leapt onto a strange-looking spacecraft that resembled a helicopter and had blades. When he looked up, he saw the lion roaring, its throat and tongue pink inside its maw. He thought of his mouth. He faced the hunters. Zoe, target the mouth. An arrow was already on the hunter's bow. The lion, weakened by the poison, slipped and fell on the spaceship. An arrow flew right by him and missed. He rose slowly and gave Percy a growl. Shit, swore Percy. From the spaceship, he leapt to the top of a massive model of the Earth that was on display on the floor. Naruto swung himself onto the back of Hydra's head and shimmied up to the top as fast as he could after jumping onto its neck. He reached the top without any opposition because the other heads froze, trying to figure out how to bite him without biting themselves. When he arrived, he drew his fist back and struck the Hydra in the eye, killing it instantly. He told himself, 4 down, 5 to go, as he hit the floor. Kusanagi flew back to him as he extended his hand. This is taking too much time. One head lunged at him, its mouth agape, and Naruto rolled out of the way. He ducked once more, avoiding a head this time. He decided to create some distractions, and 2 clones appeared after he made a hand seal. Naruto leapt onto the head and used it as a stepping stone to get to the museum ceiling while his clone diverted the monster's attention. His feet were clinging to the ceiling as he hung upside down over the Hydra. To his clones, Naruto gestured. The clones slammed both hands to the ground and retreated from the Hydra. Around the Hydra, a number of golden chakra chains protruded from the earth and sank deeply into its flesh. As it fought to break free from the chains, the monster let out a series of roars. However, it was all in vain because no matter what, the chains remained in place. Time to end this in a lightning style, Naruto declared. Taliah retreated after jabbing at the beast. She was pressed by the lion. Percy, whatever you're going to do, she called. She flew into the side of a Titan rocket as the lion roared and swatted her like a cat toy. She slid to the ground as her head struck the metal. Hey! Declared Percy to the lion. He threw Riptide like a throwing knife, but he was too far away to hit. That was enough to draw the monster's attention, even though it bounced off the lion's side. The lion snarled as it turned to face him. The only way to approach the beast was to charge, and as the lion jumped to stop him, he threw a space food pouch, a piece of freeze-dried strawberry parfait wrapped in cellophane, into its maw. The lion gagged like a cat with a hairball as his eyes widened. Zoe, get ready! Shouted Percy. After choking down the space food packet, the beast gave Percy a hateful look. He roared, opening his mouth. Percy jammed an ice cream sandwich down his throat this time. The lion retreated from him as his eyes glowed. Percy shouted, now, when he saw this opportunity. The lion's maw was instantly pierced by 6 arrows. The blow caused the lion to rear back onto his hind legs before tumbling forward. Grover got down on his knees and assisted Taliah in standing up. She was a little stunned, but otherwise fine. The hunters landed beside Percy after falling from the balcony. Percy caught Zoe's eye. That was an interesting strategy. Hey, it worked. She didn't dispute. The lights suddenly started to flicker. The air was filled with the sound of 100 wings flapping. Taliah questioned, what's going on? Bianca said, look up, gesturing toward the ceiling. Red lightning danced around Naruto's sword and body as he stood upside down on the ceiling. With his weapon aimed at the Hydra, he descended like a huge bolt of lightning from the sky, illuminating the museum with red light and scattering sparks everywhere. With a high-voltage shock of electricity running through its body, the Hydra roared and writhed in agony. Its body developed large cracks, and it gradually broke apart into golden dust, leaving behind nothing but a crater that was blazing hot. With wide eyes after witnessing such a massive lightning strike, Grover asked, can you do that? I don't know, Zeus's daughter said uncertainly. It was the most unusual color of lightning she had ever seen. Percy witnessed the extent of Naruto's devastation in a single blow. The once smooth flooring has scratches and burns. A sizable smoking crater where the lightning strike occurred, and tiny, burned pieces of planes. Possibly all that was left. One section of the museum had been literally destroyed by him. He whispered, I hope the museum has insurance. Hey, your lion is melting. Naruto grasped the blade's tip with his bare hand as Percy whirled around and swung his sword forward. He remarked, whoa, just take it easy, Percy, Naruto. When Percy recognized it as Naruto, he exhaled in relief. Please, don't do that again. Don't do what? Never mind. Percy turned to face the animal they had killed. Naruto was correct. The lion appeared to be melting until only its glistening fur coat remained, and even that appeared to be getting smaller than the typical lion's pelt. Take it, said Zoe. Percy gazed at her intently. What, the lion's fur? Isn't that, like, an animal rights violation or something? It is a spoil of war, stated Zoe. It is rightly thine. You killed it. She gave a headshake. I think thy ice cream sandwich did that. Fair is fair, Percy Jackson. Take the fur. It was surprisingly light when Percy lifted it up. It was soft and silky fur. The pelt then transformed into a coat, a golden brown duster that was full length. Not exactly my style, he whispered to himself. That's unfair, mentioned Naruto. He folded his arm and stabbed the sword into the ground. You got a coat, but I got nothing in return. Grover said, Naruto, look down at your sword. Naruto cast his gaze downward. He observed a dark aura slowly consuming the floor as it leaked from the Kusanagi's blade. It eventually made a tiny hole in it. Sweet, my sword got an upgrade, he declared. In the cramped area, Naruto practiced swinging the sword after releasing it. Then Kusanagi melted back into his skin, assuming the shape of her white snake. When he saw the damage he had caused to the museum, he turned and rubbed the back of his head. I think I've overdone it a bit, he said. Bianca gave him an incredulous look. The words, you think, she said. Yeah, said Naruto. He closed his eyes and cupped his hand. Grover declared, we must leave this place immediately. The security guards won't stay confused for long. The guards hadn't hurried forward to arrest them, which was odd. They were scurrying in every direction but their own, as if they were desperately looking for something. Some were colliding with one another or the walls. For the first time, Percy noticed. He said, you did that? To Grover. Grover gave a somewhat embarrassed nod. A minor confusion song. I played some Barry Manilow. It works every time, but it'll only last a few seconds. Phoebe said, Uzumaki, what are you doing? Praying, Naruto uttered while keeping his eyes shut. Over the museum, a dense, unnatural mist grew into a dense fog. All quest participants noticed that everything had returned to its initial state after it cleared. There was no evidence of fighting, the floor had been fixed, and every exhibit was in its proper location and in excellent shape. Thanks Mom, said Naruto. Now, Zoe said, we have to go. Look. They could see a group of men crossing the lawn through the museum's glass walls. Gray men dressed in gray camouflage. Percy, the skeleton warriors, after making a brief hand gesture, one shadow clone materialized. Go and distract them. The clone saluted his creator before flickering off to perform his duties. Naruto gave Zoe a look. He said, so, what's the plan?
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.